Welcome, everybody. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to, this past Friday, we lost one of our students in Novato, a senior at Novato High. Very unfortunate, and I want to take a moment of silence for him. So if we could do that, please. Thank you. All right. The board did meet in closed session this evening, and we'll have Trustee Aguila report those items out, please.
Yeah. Okay, the first item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957-6, conference with labor negotiations, Chris Koska, Deputy Superintendent, Human Resources and Strategic Development, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, and we just gave direction. And the second item that we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 549569, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, and is with the matter of the Coalition to Save San Marino versus Novato Unified School District, civil case number CIV 1702295. The board has authorized an appeal of the ruling issued by the Marin County Superior Court. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And before we approve the agenda, board members, you have several items at your desk, or in front of you. One of the items is the African American History Month. It's a resolution. This item did not get on our agenda, so I want to see if we can handle this evening, put it as part of our agenda. So what I would need, if everybody is before you, what I would need is an approval to put it on our agenda, and then we'll place it under discussion action as one of our first items for discussion action.
I move.
Okay, so we have a first.
Madam President,
Yes,
procedurally, are we able to do that, or are we allowed to do that?
as long as the board approves adding it to the agenda.
So we don't need the 72-hour notice on
No.
this item?
Because we're all just seeing it right now,
Okay.
and there's a copy of it over there in the binder as
Okay.
well. So
Fair enough.
none of us has seen this prior to this evening. So if you and as we go through the meeting, you can take a look at it, and then we'll get it to discussion action, and Superintendent Hogaboom will present the item to us, and we'll proceed from there. So I did have a first by Trustee Mack and a second by Trustee Aguila to put this African American History Month resolution on the agenda. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Also this evening, Trustee Millerick is unable to make it. He has some illness in his family, so he's handling that, and we'll proceed without him, unfortunately. And all right, so moving on to comments from anybody in the audience. If you would like to make a comment on something that's not on the agenda, or if it's on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. I already have one blue card here. They're over on the cart over there. Bring it up to Sally, and we'll make sure you're able to speak where that item is on the agenda, or if it's not, there's a spot for that as well. You do have 3 minutes to speak. We have our timer right here, and just come up to the podium when I call your name, and we'll get started with your comments. And if it's a non-agenda public comment, the board is unable to comment on that item, but we're here to listen for sure, though. And just to remind everybody, we are recorded live. You can, so if you're in the audience, you'll be seen on our YouTube channel with NCTV, and you can go back and look at our meetings as well. They're all there if you want to look at a past meeting. Okay, so moving on to consent. Would the board have any items they'd like to pull under consent? We do have, in your pile of items, is 15D. There is a revision on the funding. It's $2,000. This is the CEQA for the air conditioning, approval of the California Environmental Quality Act, categorical exemption for the air conditioning for Loma Verde, Linwood, and Olive. So that's part of our approval is amending of 15D. Let me just make sure that, yes, it is the funding item. And thank you, Trustee Gasson, for noticing that. And is there any pulling of any items back to that? Okay, so,
So I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended by new information on item D.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
all right, so we have a first by Trustee Nell, a second by Trustee Cooper. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda, 6-0, absent. All right, on to our presentation this evening. We have San Marin here. And I don't know, okay. Hi, Diane. Come on up and we'll get started.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Diane Santamarina, Assistant Principal, San Marin High School. We have two short presentations. Our first one is from our award-winning student from the Linnea Festival, Sitlali Tejeda, and she's going to present her award-winning monologue.
Just really quickly, my monologue is from the One Act Dream Act, and it'll be political, just as a warning. So, just warning. You have no idea. I know you care, but you have no idea what it's like to be shunned by your own government. You see, it really is my government, my Constitution, my Declaration of Independence, my Constitution. It was the government I was taught to love and respect. I have a brother, and when he turns 18, they can send him off to Iraq, to Afghanistan, or wherever. My brother, my blood, could die for my country. But they won't let me stay. My government won't let me dream. When I was 5 or 6, I was just learning how to read and write. I was at the kitchen table with my mom, and we were writing a birthday card for her. And my dad, he suddenly says to me, "Eres mi Victoria." Do you know what that means? And I said, "Of course I do. I'm your Victoria, I'm your Vicky." And he said, "No, your name, it means victory. I chose that name for you, so whatever you chose to do in life, it would end in victory." And I believe that. I still believe that. Thank you.
Do you want to do that later or now? She has to go to rehearsal.
Could you come back? That was awesome. Congratulations. So we have a certificate for you. The Lanai Gold Medal recipient for Dreamer Act and Bob Smart Spirit Award. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
The Bob Smart Spirit Award?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob Smart was the founder of the Linnea Festival, and the Bob Smart Spirit Award is given to any student with what's it called? Extraordinary leadership abilities. It's for someone who took unnecessary steps just to make sure that whatever show they were bringing up, it would end up successful, and they would do whatever it takes to get it up there. So that's the Bob Smart Spirit of Linnea Award.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. We're
Thank
very
you.
proud of you. Yeah.
Thank
nice
you.
job. Everyone, come on for a photo.
Oh, right.
There you go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. A few years ago, when I was at San Jose teaching eighth grade science, I had the pleasure of teaching these two young ladies who are now seniors in our STEM program. And they are going to give you an update and an overview on the STEM Pegasus project. So we have Kelsey Bergeson and Laura Fleischhauer. I probably got that close. And they are also supported tonight by the volunteer that makes this program happen, Mr. Dave McConnell.
Okay. So this is the Pegasus project, and this is.
Excuse me, can you just speak?
Yeah.
louder?
This is the first year it was started. This is the class of 2016, 2017, and these are just some pictures of them working on the plane. And originally they were setting up the classroom that we're currently building in. They had to build the desks, and then they built the fuselage pit area that people sit in. And then this was last year, 2017, 2018, and they built the tail comb for the back of it. And then this is this year, and we are working on building the wings.
So some of the skills that we gain through building the actual plane is that we gain a lot of problem-solving skills, because there's a lot of issues with the plans that we run into where we don't know which way the parts need to be assembled. And then this leads into gaining collaboration skills, because we have to discuss the skills, and oftentimes we argue about which way we need to assemble the parts. And then we also gain actual building skills through the riveting, the drilling, the deburring that we do when we're assembling all the different parts. And we also learn how to correctly read the engineering drawings. We learn how to take responsibility for what we're doing, because there's no error, like there's no room for error in this plane. It needs to be able to be FAA certified in the end. And our motto is kind of, good enough is not actually good enough, it needs to be perfect. We gain communication skills as well as leadership skills as well. And then some of the non-building learning opportunities we have through this project is we have different groups set up to do different aspects of the non-building part. So we have a group set up to maintain the whole Project Pegasus website. We have a group that is currently figuring out how to move the entire project into a different room, and where to put all the parts in that room, where to keep all the tools, and figure out how to arrange the space to maximize the space. We learn how to raise money in an efficient and effective way, and we learn how to manage the tools and parts availability, as well as keeping the necessary records so that we can get this plane FAA certified. We also have a group that arranges, every Friday we have speakers, and we have a group specifically arranging those speakers. And then we also have a group that makes presentations to present to groups like you guys.
So these are some of the, these are all of the backgrounds from our mentors who help us build the plane. Many of them work or fly planes at NUSD Field or have built planes themselves that we're working on. They come from all different backgrounds, as you can see. Some of them are engineers, chemists, or flight pilots themselves. And then this is just like an overview of STEM. So this project really brings it all together. So these are just a few of the projects we've done. So we start with freshman year with physics and engineering. One project we did was building and designing an outdoor classroom for San Marin. So we made 3D models. And then sophomore year we have biology and biotech. So for that class we did a project where we had to find a world problem and try and figure out a solution for it. So for example, my group did a hydroponic, like on a lake kind of design for farming alternative. And then junior year, we take chemistry, and then we also get to choose a class of our that we are more interested in from the different STEM fields and options. And then senior year, we have our engineering class, which is an overarching like capstone project where you can build the plane and work with the engineering drawings and stuff, or you can choose to do your own project and take in more of like what you're interested in.
And then if you want to learn anything more about the plane or just STEM as a whole, we have these 3 websites listed, and they have all of the information. They have student websites. We have our plane website. It has information about the plane, progress updates, as well as who's working on the plane every year, and pictures to show the progress as we're working on it. And then we'd like to invite any of you guys, if you ever want to come and actually watch us build the plane. We build the plane every day, first and second period, so you're more than welcome to just join in whenever you'd like to see us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the board? Trustee Cooper?
So it looks like you're kind of, let me pose this in a question. How far along in the entire process are you to completion and FAA certification? Is that like 2 more years, 4 more years?
Could you come up?
Would you mind coming up?
Yeah. Because since
I hate to put you on the spot. Yeah.
since we're recorded or
For
streaming.
the project, who's been here for more than just our 1 year.
I'm Dave McConnell. I'm been involved with the project from the very beginning, so I know a little bit about it. It's hard to say, our concentration is not on building the airplane. The concentration is on building these guys. So the airplane goes slowly, and we don't really care about that. What we care about is what it does for the students we're working with. So I would guess that we're at least, well, there's an old joke in building aircraft, and that is you're 95% of the way done, 95% of the time you're working on it. Well, I think we're actually about halfway done, which means that we have 95% more to go, something like that.
That's great. I think maybe you should slow down a little bit so you can impact more of our students.
We have worked with over 100 so far.
That's
In
awesome.
in the 3 years that we've been across it, we've worked with over 100.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, and when I was at San Marin, one time I had the privilege of being there and seeing
Last
the
year, yep.
parts of the plane and speaking with you and the students working there so far. And just so you know, I have a couple of nails from the plane.
Gotta give them back.
You gave them to me, but if you need them back so they can fly, let me know. I still have them. And I really, it's a reminder to me of the goodness that is happening at San Marin. So thanks to you and your patience and your efforts. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much.
I would
Yes.
like to reiterate the offer it's a very complicated process, and it's really, if I say so myself, pretty cool. So I would urge any of you to come and see at any time. It's cool, right?
Thank you for presenting. All right, we'll continue on with our announcements, and we'll start with our student board members. You guys are all here, which is great, so we appreciate that. McKenna, do you want to get started?
Excuse my lost voice. I'm a little bit sick. Okay, so recently in the past weekend, our girls varsity cheer team won the JMCIF state title for the second time, in a row, they got first place. And this week is our wellness week. So yesterday we had a different schedule, and we had different speakers come in. So we had 40-minute classes, and then after our fourth period we had 2 different sessions, and there were 2 35-minute sessions, and you could choose to go to I went to 2 yoga classes, but there was meditation classes, things speaking about anxiety and depression. There was a general mental health session. There was things like knitting and crafting. So you could go to 2 of those sessions. And then this whole week we have activities going on at lunch and after school. So tomorrow at lunch we're going to have a crafting corner. And then after school at 2 o'clock, there's going to be yoga and meditation in different rooms. And then Thursday is Valentine's Day. And so we're going to have Valentine's Day events. We do a marriage booth and whatever photos and stuff. And then we also have a healthy relationships booth. It's called One Love. And then after school, there's a yoga class with our MSA assistant principal, Miss Cortez. And then Friday, we're going to have therapy dogs come in from the Marin Humane Society. And then our Student Advocacy Council is working really hard on getting a wellness center at Novato High School, because we don't feel like we're doing enough to support our students' mental health, as we've lost 3 students in the past year to suicide. So that's a big focus. We're looking for funding and all kinds of stuff. That's all.
I'm Jimena Lara from San Marin, and so we have our fashion show March 2nd, and all of our formal attire and our casual attire is all being donated by stores around Marin. So we have stores like Sports Basement, TMB, Banana Republic, and all formal Bliss Bridal and whatnot. So that's really nice. We're all getting the whole leadership class getting ready for that. And a few students from the Equity Club are working on recruiting kids to help tutor ELD students to help them get ready for the CASP testing at the end of the year. And this will be taking place in the Learning Lounge, so it's usually open from 3:30 to around 7. Winter sports teams are coming to a close, and spring sports teams are starting up. Bring Change to Mind Club has been meeting every other week, I believe. And yeah, that's our mental health awareness club. And Jazz Choir and Leadership are raising money through Valentine's Day grams. So Jazz Choir is selling singing grams, and Leadership is selling candy grams to raise money for the programs.
DJ? Yeah.
Okay. I'm DJ from Marin Oaks, and in honor of Black History Month, in art we are choosing an African American in history, and then we draw a picture of them. But some parts of their face are words about their accomplishments and how they contribute to our world. In English, we are reading The Hate You Give and are having deep discussions about societal injustice and diversity and inclusion. Our leadership classes created posters about historical figures in history that are being displayed tomorrow. On Saturday, January 19th, Miss Early and a few staff from Marin Oaks and Novato High, along with Bill Welch, took 30 male students to San Quentin to participate in the Squires program. The students who attended came back with a lot of insightful thoughts and have requested to return this spring. It's a chance for them to speak with inmates and learn their stories, and it seemed to make a big impression. We've been working with Lori Marshall to help create the age-friendly Novato mural. Unfortunately, there has been some negative press around it. However, while we created it, we enjoyed the process. One of the 6 C's that we are focusing on for February is critical thinking. Each month, our teachers create lessons that focus around one of the graduate profile 6 C's. In English, we are given a list of supplies and then given a scenario that we've been in a boat crash and had to rate the importance of supplies.
Great, thank you. Trustee Nell?
I had the honor of attending the Marin Educators for Equity on Saturday morning. It's a coalition of professional educators here in Marin of color and minorities status, and it was a very powerful morning for me. But essentially, the idea is around building a coalition, an organization, and helping these professionals overcome the obstacles and issues that they deal with based on the race within our community here in Marin, as well as financial issues, housing, and many others. So I think we should be acknowledging this group, and they'll be coming forward with a report soon, and I think we'll want to take a look at that when it comes out. So that's my report.
Thank you for attending and representing the board with that. I appreciate it. Trustee Gasson?
Hi. So I started off last week on Tuesday with the budget Q&A, which I thought was great. I appreciate Yancey taking that on and providing that information and opportunity to the community. I then went upstairs and to the special education meeting that was provided, and I thought it looked like it was very well attended. And I heard from the community that they appreciated those types of events being calendared, so I appreciate that myself. On Wednesday, I attended the Safe Routes to School meeting, and they actually acknowledged during the meeting Mark Silva's recent help and said thank you. Chris Blanc also reported, Chris with City of Novato, he reported on the Vineyard roadwork. I don't know if you heard about that it got approved and the contract was executed, so that was good news. Their next meeting is May 15th at 6 p.m. And I was new to this, and so I didn't know, but it's completely open to the public. People are welcome to come, but they request it covers school safety issues, not just complaints about traffic. I also attended on Thursday the Nevada High School PTSA meeting, which I enjoy getting that information because my kids are not yet there. And then on Thursday, we started meeting again for the North Bay Science Discovery Day, which is in collaboration with, the meetings are held on Thursdays at the Buck Institute, but it's in collaboration with UCSF. It's an annual STEM event that I help coordinate. It's held in October. And just as an informational what our schools are doing, Pleasant Valley did a Global School Play Day on September 5th. It's an unstructured no-tech play day event, and I noticed that Olive had some signs about that too, so they might have participated in it as well. But my daughter loved it, and it's a way to get out of technology and have some fun, unstructured fun in class. So.
Trustee Mack?
I'll try to be quick. Back on the 4th, went to the MCOE School Finance Forum. I think a lot of us were there. I think it's really a valuable forum for all of us, not to just learn more about the budget, but to hear insights on the budget from the people who actually police the districts and go in when things aren't going so good. And we heard some very interesting stories that definitely get you thinking. So anyway, very useful forum. The good news is there's a fair amount of good news coming from Newsom so far. Let's hope there's more. And you'll hear that, I'm sure, from Yancey and others as that happens. Then on the 5th, attended the budget questions with Yancey along with Diane here. And there's some good questions in there. And as well, we learned that there was some, I don't know if confusion is the right word, but just some concerns on the questionnaire in terms of setting the framing of the questions, because they seem to be kind of coming out of thin air. So that's useful feedback for next time. But I do think the questionnaire is a fantastic tool because, you have to do something to ask questions. But anyway, then afterward, I did go up to the special education meeting, and that was very well attended, and it was educational for me as well. Then let's see, yesterday went to the dual immersion committee meeting, I guess is the best way to put it. And it's going great. Very successful. They did a visit to, Loma Vista school up in Petaluma, another DI school. And they're about 10 years ahead of us, but lots of things to learn from them. And Melissa is the right person. She's doing a great job. She's excited. She's got the teachers motivated. The big topic that's going to come in front of us sooner rather than later, what do we do in 6th grade? So let's just start thinking about that. I know I am. And, I mean, do we add a sixth to the elementary level, or do we go straight into middle and start mainstreaming, or what do we do? Or do we put them in their own thread? We're going to have to figure that one out. And we have a couple years, but let's do it sooner rather than later. And last but not least, I did go to the Nevada High Sports Boosters meeting last night, and I want to thank Mike Woolard for being there, sharing the plans for what's going to be happening to the school over the summer. There's a lot of interest there, of course, in getting it right, and I was very impressed with the turnout. There's probably about 30 people there, so there's a lot of excitement in Nevada High, and not just because of those fields, just in general, so it's good. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Cooper?
I attended both of the budget meetings, one on the 4th at the MCOE, as well as the budget Q&A here in the DO. And Yancey, I'd like to thank you for setting that up and kind of managing that. I think there were some misconceptions among several people out there in the community, and I think that helped clarify. So thanks. That's it.
Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, I attended part of the Q&A meeting here, and I wanted to thank Yancey for giving us an update on the budget. And I did not attend the special ed meeting, but I translated the flyer. Hope that helped. I do want to remind people that there's a survey out there. It's the survey for that was mailed out, and it's also on the website. And it's for the budget survey, and there's a deadline, and that's on Friday, this Friday. It's very important that we get feedback from the community. It's crucial, actually. So that's it.
Okay. I was able to get over to Novato High and attend the wellness day, I guess. It's a whole week, but I was able to pop in and see the different area activities that were going on, and it was students were engaged, I thought, and well interested, and there was something for everybody. So I think it's great. I think was it the leadership team that got that together, and McKenna? Yeah. Okay. Took control, yeah, kind of ran with it, yeah. Well, it's good. It's something different than you guys normally have done in the past, and it was a different way to treat this week, and it was the right timing for what has happened there. So I thought it was great. And North Marin Council PTA meeting, I attended that. And Model the Way Awards, which is, so we give 4 awards to employees here in the district. So we go around and present the Model the Way Award to them, and it's really been very successful, and I really enjoy tagging along with that. I attended the both of the budget forums that occurred, one at the county and one here. I think what's really good about this board is we really try to keep ourselves informed, even if it's sitting back to back on a budget, the state budget, sitting back to back and hearing the same thing over and over, but we hear something differently. You tend to get one little nugget out of each of those, and so I respect each of us for doing that and taking the time out. We constantly are trying to learn and understand what's happening in it, that's specifically to the budget. One of our teachers here that's retired that was at Hamilton, Fern Kepke, she was a kindergarten teacher at Hamilton, and she wrote a children's book. So she had a little book signing over at Copperfield's Books a couple weekends ago, and I was able to stop by and attend that and see her and get a signed copy of her book. So that's it. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Youth Leadership Institute that I went to on Friday night, which was out at Walker Creek. So they had over 100 students from all the high schools pretty much in Marin County. And the focus was really good because they tried to get a diverse group of people. So it wasn't just ASB, there was AVID, there was students in restorative justice, and did some team building activities on Friday. But one of the main focus of the retreat was inclusion and how to make sure that we include more students in activities in the high school that are not, especially kids sometimes who don't normally participate, whether that's rallies or dances. And probably the most powerful part for me Friday after dinner was 4 students who were immigrants 3 from Novato High and 1 from Santa Fe spoke about their experiences and how difficult it was being here and how it would be helpful to have support if they were here. And then other students spoke about their experiences and, again, the need for inclusion and safety and to reach out to all students. They're all part of our student body. And then from that, the next day, well, they did have a dance on Friday night, but then the next day was about building plans at each of the schools that were going to incorporate some of those ways to include students in there. So we had about 24 students from Novato High and 4 teachers and about 10 students from San Marin. So I think we probably had the largest contingent in the county, but it was really great to see students articulating their needs and concerns and then trying to help all students again feel part of the team at the school. So it was very powerful.
All right, thank you, everybody. We don't have any non-agenda public comment, so we'll move on to our first staff report. This is our mid-year goals update from Superintendent Hogeboom.
Hello again. So it's mid-year or just about mid-year, and just want to briefly touch on our goals, and then I want to allow Amy Carter some time to talk about some of the work we're doing to gather data. We don't want to wait till the end of the year to see if we achieved our goals or not. So she will give an update about some of the things we're doing. So just to remind, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I will remind everybody, we have our 4 goal areas that we've had for the last 4 years: equity, student success, staff success, and community engagement. And then we have 3 key goals for each of those. So under equity, the first goal is to increase the number of Latino, socioeconomically disadvantaged special ed and EL students meeting the A to G requirements by 5%. The second specific goal is reduce the number of suspensions for special education students. And the third goal is to increase the number of EL learners who are achieving progress on the LPAC. So again, I won't go through all of that. I'll just mention 4 things that we're doing. One is to find ways to personalize learning, which is an ongoing effort and very difficult at the high schools, but I would say that both high schools are looking at adjusting their schedules for next year to allow for some personalized time with teachers, whether that's called tutorial time or what have you. And so that's really crucial if we're to give kid guidance, especially about how to meet the 6Cs. We've also been bringing teams to go visit Lindsay Unified School District. We've been there twice now. We're going to go one more time in April. I hope some board members are going to go with us. Lindsay Unified has about 1 high school. They got rid of their middle school and they have all K-8s. I think they have 5 K-8 schools, and it really all is about personalized learning. Students do not receive Ds or Fs. They receive in progress. There's a lot of interventions in place. They have great CTE programs. They empower their students to give a lot of feedback and input. So they're kind of the model of where we want to be. They also have a learning management system that keeps track of all that called Empower. So I hope you guys will join us in April when we go over there for another visit. As I've mentioned before, we're working with Ed Trust West through a grant with Marin Promise to do an equity audit. So that's underway at both of our high schools, which is transcript analysis. It's also interviews of focus groups of students, parents, staff to see where we are, and we'll be presenting the results in the spring, and then developing a blueprint moving forward for next year. I'm working with all principals to address their goals. Secondary is working with National Equity Project. Elementary is working with Nancy Dome and Epic Education with their equity teams. And finally, we're looking at revising our district grading practices. And we'll be bringing the Marzano training here to the district in August to again be reaching towards a competency-based learning. In terms of student success, there are 3 goals there: to demonstrate progress towards a graduate profile, especially with cultural competence; to develop and implement student wellness support at every school; to support student social-emotional needs, including restorative justice practices and social-emotional curriculum. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's a huge area of concern, obviously in light of recent events at Novato High School. And the last goal is to strengthen student-staff relationships and increase personalization at all levels. Really, wellness has been something that there's been a lot of planning this year. And again, Kelly and Evie and Amy are going to talk about that a little bit more. I think we have some great plans in place, but obviously there's more we need to do. These are really difficult times, I think, for our students, and the number of students who are taking their own lives is increasing, and it's just sad, discouraging, and tragic. And we've got to find a way to help our students to deal with the world today. So they'll be giving an update on that. We'll also be heading, I think, as we've talked many times before, about a multi-tiered system of support to put in place, which is a system across our district. So we have kind of interventions that hopefully meet 80% of our students. Then what do we do for the 20%? And then what do we do for the 5%? And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Staff success has 3 goals: ensure all elementary teachers are trained to implement the Readers Writers Workshop, ensure all secondary teachers develop learning targets and common assessments, and then ensure all teachers are trained on culture responsive teaching practices. We were going to have a graduate profile committee this year, but it just wasn't panning out. We didn't have the right people. So Amy will talk a little bit more about our teacher leadership team. We've gotten some feedback about professional development, and we need to listen to our teachers more about how we're doing that. So we're going to be convening that in the spring, and that should help us to get more teacher input on some of the things that we're doing. And then finally, with community engagement, the 3 goals are strengthen the district and school safety, ensuring physical safety and wellness plans are in place at every school, which we do have those safety plans. In fact, you'll be approving the plan tonight, a little bit later on. Specifically, goal 2, to better engage our DLAC and our special education parents who felt like they were left out of the process. And then 3rd, to engage students, parents, and community on district-related initiatives such as budget review, school size review, and special education review. So I think we're hitting on all of those. We are meeting periodically. I attend our DLAC meetings. We're trying to come up with new ways to reach out to our Spanish-speaking parents, including making videos. The Youth Truth Survey, I think, is important to get us a lot of information from a lot of our different constituents and stakeholders, whether that's parents, students, or staff. We will be having a meeting on the 28th with our school site councils to have them help us look at the results from that. And this is our 2nd year, so we have baseline data to look at. And I think we've done a good job, as people have mentioned before, of trying to reach out on the budget review. That's always a tough one. When we convene the budget advisory committee, that's helpful because we can go into a lot more explanation about parts of the budget. Obviously, if you're doing a survey, it was a balance between giving people information on the first 2 or 3 pages that allowed them to make a decision to rank those items. So we're getting that feedback back. And as Maria said, that survey closes on Friday. So that's kind of an update on where we are. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Amy Carter to talk about some more specifics of how we're working with our staff.
Thank you, Superintendent, trustees. Let's see. So we wanted to just kind of give you an overview tonight about how it is that we in Education Services and as a team are really thinking about these big district goals and how we're striving to attack them. One of the big philosophy shifts that we are doing as a team is really looking at small data and using small data to drive big data. As you remember, a few months ago, I was here letting you know how we'd performed on the dashboard, letting you know about our graduation rate. And, you know, while informative, there's sort of a hollowness to this because this is data that we're left powerless to influence. It's kind of terminal data to see our graduation rate, you know, 3 months after graduation. Another element that we are all focused on improving that's part of our district goals is our A through G completion rate. Again, this is something that we get the data after graduation, and there's an element of sort of like, well, gee, that's pretty terrible, but what are we doing about that? So we've really sort of adopted a philosophy in education services, and it comes to us from Toyota Engineering. It's called Poke-a-Joke. And Toyota Engineering had this philosophy on their factory floor about building in mechanisms as they're building their cars that help them identify on the factory floor where something's gone wrong way before it ends up in the final vehicle. And so that's really our mindset about this data. And as we look at that graduation rate, as we look at the A through G completion rate,
We need to really think about research and find out where this problem starts. And what research tells us is that graduation rate and those A through G completion rates began in 2014. And that's with our freshman failure rate is a very strong indicator as to whether you'll have a successful graduate, you'll have a graduate who completes those A through Gs. And just to give you an idea of how impactful this is, just one F for a freshman decreases the probability of them graduating by 30 percentage points. One F for a freshman. Even 2 for a ninth grader decreases the probability of graduating over 50 percentage points. So for us in our mindset as a team, we're really focused on these early indicators that let us know that there's something that's awry, something we need to address. Too often, systems look at juniors and seniors and then start identify them as individuals who are off track to graduate. We want to be a system that does that from the very get-go. Our superintendent is always talking to us about looking for those trim tabs, those small elementary things that can make a big difference in a system. And we truly believe that the ninth grade failure rate is something that we see as an important trim tab where we can address in real time these issues and get students back on track for graduation and A through G completion. So we started an initiative in the fall. We spoke to both principals and teachers about being highly aware of the DF list for our freshmen. We pulled some early data before our freshmen had even taken their finals to really identify where we had kids at risk and where we needed to be mobilizing. Jen Larson has also sat down with our counselors from both high schools and really helped them think through how to look at a student transcript, how to identify early on. We took some of those individuals who ended up on our negative data who weren't able to achieve their A through G, and we did kind of a reverse engineering, and we looked at their transcripts and said, where would we as a system have been able to intervene? Where was that moment, and where did we miss it? So that's really the mindset that we're looking at this problem and trying to create things in the system, that multiple tiered system of supports, where we identify these kids, mobilize around them, and get them back on track for graduation as early as in the second half of their freshman year or their sophomore year. So we wanted to we shared with our schools and staffs where failure is occurring in our high schools for these freshman students. We see Algebra 1 is often a very significant obstacle for freshman achievement. In the top of my slides here, you'll see where our failure rate was for 2018, and the numbers are bigger because I'm looking at both semesters. And then in the bottom, you'll see where we landed in 2019. So our Algebra 1 rate at Novato High School in the yellow there saw a slight increase. So now we know that we have 24 students who are off track to graduation. Their risk is increased, and we need to mobilize around those children. English 9 also, this for San Marin, we saw a slight increase on the English 9 failure rate. So again, we know the names of those students. We know if they have any at-risk identifiers. And we're creating plans to address this right now in real time so that we can get these kids back on track for graduation in the next 4 years. PE was one of those that we really had a lot of discussions about. You can see our PE failure rate at San Marin High School last year was 10.68%. And we had a lot of conversations about that. We looked at the syllabus, we looked at student behavior and some of the methodologies that may have given rise to that kind of high failure rate for the PE 9. We had some difficult conversations as a system and really reflected on that. And you can see that as a result, here in 2019, we've cut that failure rate in half. And both schools saw a significant decline. Another area was our college and career readiness course. You could see we had a nice decline there in Novato High School. We went from a 12.86% failure rate down to a 5% failure rate. And we really see this as because we mobilized around the data, we made it transparent, we were able to have those preventative and hard conversations early on instead of after the fact. So the overall results of just this one small, simple project is that the Novato High School failure rate dropped from 8.3% last year to a 6.1% this year. San Marin High School failure rate dropped from 6% down to 5.1%. So this is an area that we're really focused on. We see it as that early indicator, and this is how we're approaching a lot of those system problems to make sure that we achieve the goals that you've set for us. We really believe that we need to continually monitor and take this sort of approach to other things, to literacy, to mathematics, to attendance, to behavioral problems, and use a tiered approach when we identify these moments where our students are falling off track and need that extra support to make sure that we're achieving those outcomes that are reflected on the dashboard. Any questions? Trustee Gasson?
Thank you for that information. And actually, my question is wondering if it's soon enough by ninth grade. You know, from personal experience, I'm just wondering if trying to look at 7th and 8th grade to see if we have issues. I mean, because it's really hard to catch up. I mean, I'm happy to see that it's improving, but just is it soon enough?
Yep, absolutely, and that's really the mindset that we want to develop. We started with this 9th grade failure rate because it felt like a real obvious indicator for us, but now we're taking the same mindset and linking back to the middle schools and having them identify where their poke-a-joke moments are, where on the factory floor we're getting that red warning light, and where we can mobilize around that. So we're really going to use this mindset to the system problems at middle school and elementary moving forward. Anybody else? Okay. This was really good. I really enjoyed, the data is always, it always goes back to the data. That's where you start with, and I think we have it there, it's available, it's how we look at it and what we do with it, and that's what you started with that.
Yep.
And I think that was important, so thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the elementary school size committee report, and Superintendent Hogaboom will present this item.
Thanks, Ellie. Hello again. You also have some additional information at your seats about some information about that the elementary school size committee got about what does the data tell us, and some information about other partial tax rates in Marin County. So it looks like that if you haven't seen it. So the Nevada Unified School District School Size Committee was a recommendation from the Budget Advisory Committee of 2 years ago. So that's where that started, was take a look and see if we should look into the possibility what an ideal school size should be, and if we need to eventually look at the idea of closing an elementary school. So we hired Suzanne Speck to come in from School Services to help facilitate the meetings. She couldn't be here tonight, so I apologize for that, but she actually helped prepare this presentation. So the purpose of the committee was pretty clear. We would identify the pros and cons of elementary school size, review comparable school districts, determine what the ideal elementary school size would be, quantify savings or additional costs to transition to the ideal elementary school size, and then make a recommendation to me to make to you, to the board, for next steps. So these are the members of the committee. There were 25 members, including parents and staff members for each elementary school, 3 principals, 3 other community members, and they're all right there. I think that Tim, do you want to wave? Tim, I think, is one of the few committee members that was there. Amy, who else? Anyone? I think that's it. Oh, Yancey, Kelly. I don't really count you guys because you're administrators, but there you go. So it was a great group, and the nice thing was that they consistently participated. Sometimes you start a committee and you get everybody there, but we had about 25 people that were there the whole time, which made it very helpful. So the process, we started in the beginning and did some team building things and set some norms and all that. So it was a collaborative problem-solving process designed to assist parties in reaching agreement when some interests are shared and others are not. Secondly, to assist the parties in reaching agreement when some interests are shared and others are not. Allows groups to understand the interests of all parties and share their perspectives. And then to facilitate a group's ability to reach consensus. So we kind of use that consensus model. We had 4 meetings, one in October, November, December, and February. So we met 4 times. On October 22nd, we did a brainstorming activity where we identified, okay, when is an elementary school too small? When is it too large? And out of that, we really developed the 4 criteria that we've used on the committee. One was about facility capacity, instructional program, school culture, and operational efficiency. So those were kind of the 4 criteria that we were looking at as we looked at what's the ideal size of an elementary school. Then we looked at data and information we needed to evaluate about current elementary school sites against that criteria. So at the second meeting on the 28th, we did a data review, including comparative school district data size. So as you know, we have 7 comparable districts that we look at in negotiations. Those are districts with similar size, unified school districts, similar demographics, and similar cost of living. So we looked at what they did, what the size of their schools were, and most of those school districts have schools that are a lot larger than ours. A lot of them are in the LA area, so that's one consideration right there. We looked at elementary school operational cost. We looked at per student revenue and expenditure data, and we looked at staffing ratios. Then we asked, what does the data tell us, what it doesn't tell us, what do we need to know, what's missing, and had a lot of talk about what are the kinds of data we needed. Then in December, we used the school size criteria and a 5-point rating scale to determine if our elementary schools were too small or whether or not the committee should recommend that the district consider closing a school. So we had a lot of conversations using those 4 criteria about where that was. And then finally, at our last meeting last week, we came to consensus around the overarching committee recommendation. We reviewed the recommendations to generate savings, increase efficiencies, and generate revenues. We prioritized the recommendations to accomplish the goals above, and that was the last committee meeting. So the final committee recommendations were to not close an elementary school. It was that the size, in 2 of the criteria, the size of our elementary schools has a positive impact. We're on the instructional program and school culture. So the smaller size of our schools we felt was conducive to those 2. But if you looked at the facility capacity and the operational efficiency, we obviously are not operating in the most efficient manner. So 2 of the criteria, we felt that the small sizes were good. The other 2, they were not. So the recommendation, the positive impacts on the instructional program and school culture outweigh the negative impacts on facility capacity and operational efficiency. Therefore, the committee does not recommend closing an elementary school at this time. So from there, couple caveats. The committee's recommendations represent the best work to be done with the constraints of a fairly small amount of time with information. The committee was brought together to consider school size and potential closure. It was not a budget committee. However, what happened was after we decided that we weren't going to be making an official recommendation to close a school, we shifted gears to consider ways for the district to generate savings, and that's what we spent our last couple meetings doing. So the following topics were brainstormed in one meeting and then prioritized in the next. Given that these recommendations represent starting points for going forward, it's acknowledged that some of these items could happen quickly while other ones are going to take a little bit longer to pan out. So let me get those kind of came up into 4 areas. The first were what are some ideas of things that would generate revenue or programs? So those included things like explore deeper corporate partnerships. Let me get to the right page. There we go. Expand dual enrollment in partnership with College of Marin and Santa Rosa Junior College, and expand Saturday academies for attendance recovery. The next one was the parcel tax and marketing, and I think these top 2 were probably, at least from my perspective, the most significant recommendations. So one was to consider going out early for a parcel tax, either increase the dollar amount per parcel or include an escalation factor. So that's something I think we definitely need to consider. The second one is to market the benefits of local schools, including our specialized program, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. And the third one was open enrollment, to accept more in all transfer requests, give parents decisions earlier in the year. It was brought up that some parents don't get the notification till late, and so they're tired of waiting, so maybe they sign up their kid for Our Lady of Loretto. So those were 3 ideas on that front. We saw that the marketing The schools was going to most likely be a recommendation. So in all transparency, we knew that if that was going to happen, that we needed to get going on that sooner rather than later. And that's why we kind of started doing some work on that. And one of our next presentations will be around going out and using a marketing firm to help us positively portray the schools and the districts in hope of increasing our enrollment. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the near future. The next recommendations were about facility use, property sales, and rentals. So one was to rent out space for preschools. The second was to consider using the district office in Hill better. There's a lot of empty space at Hill. Somebody suggests maybe we could move the district office over to Hill, rent this place out. So that's one consideration. And look at rental options across the district and loosen restrictions on facilities rentals to try to bring more money in. And then the last one were just some other recommendations. Hire a grant writer that would be paid for from the grants we received. Eliminate our consulting contracts, which is also in the budget questionnaire. Move towards digital textbooks, which does still cost money, but maybe less expensive. And then possibly look at doing a retirement incentive in the future. So with that, next steps. As I mentioned, a marketing plan will be presented to you for approval later in the board meeting to jump on one of those. And again, there's a timeliness to that. If we're going to try to recruit families and students to the district, we need to get going on that marketing plan now, because now is when people are starting to think about making those decisions. Next would be to review other committee recommendations in conjunction with the feedback from the budget stakeholder survey and kind of take those into account. And the third one is to report back to the Board of Trustees. I think it's obvious that the report is not necessarily satisfying in terms of there's no clear direction for the board, so we realize that. But I think we all know that closing a school is a drastic step for this community, and I know that many of you were here when we closed Hill, where I used to work. And there are dangers to closing a school too. So yes, there are savings. As you can see there, if you close a school, you would save approximately $425,000 in staffing costs. But a couple of the dangers are, one, you could lose students. When you close a school, most people are in favor of closing a school unless it's their school, and then they don't want it closed, right? So that people understand the efficiencies of size. And yes, we've lost about 600 students over the last 6 years. And we're going to continue to lose students. So I think most people realize that there are some efficiencies by closing a school. But if you do close the school, there's a possibility that those parents will leave the district because you're closing their school. Maybe they're going to go to another private school. There's also a danger that you could get a charter school. I mean, the charter schools are still, the rules are still set in favor of charter schools, and there's nothing to say that if you don't close a school, that you get a charter school to move in there. So I think the bottom line from the committee, at least from my perspective, was let's be very thoughtful before we do close a school. Let's consider all these other options that we have. Let's see what the enrollment looks like for next year. And we can always come back and make that recommendation in the future. And really the parcel tax is probably the one thing that would generate the most money. Doing some marketing, going out, getting a grant writer, some of those things will help. But in terms of significant amounts of money, that would probably be something that if we did decide to consider going out earlier for a parcel tax, that's a possibility of bringing in some major amounts of money that could offset the loss of declining enrollment. So that's kind of where we are, and so wanted to just report that there again. Yancey, Chris, Kelly, Amy, and I, we were all at all the committee meetings. Tim was there as well. So that's our recommendation at this point. Again, is not to close the school, but to look at some of these other options, and maybe to come back and revisit the idea in the fall when we kind of see how things stand.
All right, Trustee Cooper.
Thank you, Superintendent Hogaboom. I think this is some great information, and I'd also like to thank the 25 committee members who spent time on this. But based on a couple things, certainly we have some budget uncertainties. Until we get the May revise, we won't know what's going on really at that state, at the budget level. And also the two facts that we're in declining enrollment, we've seen reports about that. And also the fact that we have a structural deficit in this district. I'd like to proceed with all the good information and good recommendations, but also like to, Debbie, see if we could bring this back and revisit the school closure maybe in November,
Okay.
something like that. And then we'd have enough time, possibly, if we were to close the school by the next school year, we might be able to pull that off. A
Okay.
lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
School boundary study, everything. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Mack.
Just one question, and just kind of really going back, really to the name of the committee, Elementary School Size Committee. So was there any kind of a school size number we came up with that would be appropriate for our facilities?
I don't think that we really ever agreed on a size. Again, if you look at our comparable districts, I would say, I don't know, what were those? What would you say the average elementary school size is of our comparable districts? Yeah, 450. So, but we never really agreed that exactly what an ideal size would be.
And I know we're kind of all over the map depending on what school you're talking about, but if you had an average, what would it be for our district?
$350 and
That's what I thought.
$400.
Okay, okay.
Anybody else on the school size? Trustee Nell?
So, if I understand, excuse me, I've got the same cough thing that a lot of people have. So, Trustee Cooper is talking about bringing this back. So, in the interim, I have a lot of questions, and there may be some more detail available that was presented to the committee that could be shared with the board. For instance, comparable sizes. I hear 450. How about we actually get the comparable list, put it on a spreadsheet, list their schools, and list the number of students enrolled there. I think it's a set of circumstances where we're going to just need to have the facts and figures in front of us. The recommendations are great. I think we do a lot of these things already. They ebb and flow with the effort, I'm sure. But I'd like to see some sort of dollar amounts assigned to these because strictly just based on my experience here as a trustee, some of these things are even done at 100% don't amount to a lot of money. So if we had some sort of ability to say, okay, this earns this earns that, plus minus, we'll get some kind of a bottom line when it comes to this consideration. The issue of consultants, I'm all for not wasting money on consultants, but I think we need to start to delineate between consultants that have some sort of general district purpose from those who are actually part of our LCAP or our responsibility to spend supplemental grant funds on improving the achievement gap is a term that I think most people understand. That the individuals and companies we bring in to help in those areas are specifically designed to help close that gap. If, like so many other things, it's proven very difficult. If that's not the solution, then it's like the consultants, and we're going to have to find other ways to spend that money. But that money is going to have to be spent on that targeted area. So when I hear this consultant thing, I think we need to break our consultancy. Let's differentiate our consultancy as we go forward. So give everyone a better chance to understand that. The last thing I'm thinking that there's probably is some information out there, but when you talk about optimal school size, essentially the 450 number that was kicked around a little bit today, it probably has something to do with at that number, you optimize the number of full classrooms, you have the same amount of administrators serving a certain amount of FTE. There's probably a reason why that number of 450 to 600 students per school becomes an efficiently operated place of education. And I think it would be interesting to see how well our comparables do in these schools. If their sizes, the higher enrollment, but their numbers are better and they've got better gap closure numbers, then I think we need to take this a little more seriously. So basically, we're a community who likes a lot of small schools. That has an operating expense that comes with it, so we're going to have to find a way to pay for it. It's really, difficult when you want to have all these services and do as much as you possibly can. But at some point, you realize the numbers don't add up, and you start cutting student services, limiting counselors for mental health, regardless of the facts in front of us with suicide increases, eliminating things like athletics, arts, increasing PE class sizes to ridiculous numbers. I just want to be realistic about this so that as we go forward as a community, if we want to have efficient, effective small schools, this community is going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to find a way to do that. And you have to throw all these things into the pot. The price of pay, the cost of living in this county, how difficult it is for us to recruit and retain teachers here. So I think it's time the committee's done its work. It's time to roll up our sleeves and start crunching numbers and see if we can come up with a way to move forward.
Thank you.
Trustee Aguila, and then Trustee Mack.
Yeah. I'd like to thank the the committee for taking the time to meet all these months and coming up with this. I really like the suggestions. I want to just make sure that we are very careful and we get very creative. If we need to close the school down, we need to close the school down, but trying to emphasize that, asking for a parcel tax, another one, is just, it doesn't go well with me. But we need to do what we need to do. So I suggest that we, like you said, roll up our sleeves and so that we don't have to do that. And, if we don't close the school, that'd be even better. But I just wanted to say that we need to just be very creative and whatever we need to do, let's do it so that we don't have to go back to our community and have to ask for money. And, the last parcel tax barely passed. So, and that's all I have to say.
We got 80% for the passage of the parcel tax. Yeah, Measure G was okay. Trustee Mack.
Like that.
And I would have said this, I wasn't going to say anything about this, but in hearing Trustee Nell say these things, it kind of got me thinking that I probably should. One of the concerns I heard about the committee, first off, I agree. This is great work. I really appreciate the time everyone put in. There's some great recommendations that I really want to follow up on, roll up our sleeves, and go after these things, especially on the revenue side. I think that's key. We need to push revenue. But one of the things that I've heard from some of the participants was that it was a heavily elementary school population in the committee. Understood, makes sense. However, when we're starting to make decisions that impact beyond the elementary and impact the high schools for counselors, for all those other things, we need to have their input as well. This is one large community across all age groups, and they need to weigh in on this decision as well. So while I appreciate and understand how this decision process is made, I think it was a bit skewed toward preserving the current situation with elementaries. And it didn't necessarily have enough outside, how do I put this, just not non-elementary view that looks at it. Because, once again, they're stakeholders as well. Because if it doesn't get cut down there, it gets cut up there. And we need to look at something that really represents the whole community.
All right, Trustee Gasson.
So looking at these suggestions and things, are they things you're just going to move forward with? I know we have the marketing piece in front of us tonight, but do you want feedback on what we think might be the best way to go, or are you going to bring back your thoughts? And
I think at this point, as that second thing says, is to review those committee recommendations in conjunction with the feedback we get from the budget stakeholder survey, because there's some crossover there.
Okay.
So what we'd like to do is bring back to you some recommendations for not only what to cut, but then some of the areas where we can maybe generate revenue as well and get your feedback. So we need to kind of think through some of these a little bit more. I think Trustee Nell suggested putting some numbers to them a little bit more too. So if you have those suggestions, let us know, but we'll kind of take it all back together and then bring it back in a package.
okay, because I don't want to necessarily say something if it's not going to go forward, but with the exception of the parcel tax, and having been on the committee to help pass the last one, I would like to be involved in that as much as possible. If there's discussion on that. I think it's going to be hard to do, and I would like to proactively try to put things in place so that we have some things that we can fund that benefits the whole school district, but also increases the possibility for that to happen. The other thing is, that wasn't said in here, I understand we're kind of going, maybe waiting until November, but at what point, was there ever a discussion at what point are the scales tipped to say we have to close the school? I mean, for me, I'm a financial person, I'm looking at $500,000, and I know it's not fun to close school, and I certainly don't want to, but was there any discussion at what point does it become, if we keep having declining enrollment and we keep getting, I mean, we're financially challenged right now. Was that ever a discussion as to, I understand this is for right now, but was there a discussion about like, okay, at what point do we finally say we can't just look at the benefits that, I forget the exact terminology that was used here, but, we all do like small schools.
Right. No, we didn't talk about when that would be. Again, I think the idea was to try these things out, see what the declining enrollment looks like. But again, as I think Trustee Nell mentioned, at some point, if we cut, $2 million last year, and this year we're looking at cutting $1.5 million. As long as we have declining enrollment, we're going to have to keep making cuts. So as Trustee Nell mentioned, at some point, you cut and cut and cut those things. And then at what point do you close the school, right? So I think that's going to be your ultimate call, right? We'll make a recommendation to you. I think coming back in November, as Trustee Cooper mentioned, is a good idea. By then we'll know what the declining enrollment was, but we're projected to have declining enrollment for probably the next 4 or 5 years still, right, in terms of the demographic study. So we'll have to make that decision is when do you keep making $1.5 million worth of cuts every year, and when do you cut a bigger piece of it and save the $425,000 from closing a school? So, but we didn't discuss exactly when to do that.
All right. I don't have much more to add to this. I agree with the comments that were made, and I think you've gotten everything to. This is not completely off the table of closing a school. The board would like to revisit it again as we continue to decline in enrollment, and we appreciate the work that the committee did on this, and we know it was kind of a tight 4 or 5 meetings and back-to-back, and a lot of information to look at. I know I also heard that one of the things that was discerning to me was some of the people said that they felt the district had made the decision before they even entered the meeting, and believe me, that is not the case. We don't form these committees just for the heck of it. We form them because we want your input. It's valuable to us. We don't just sit up here as 7 of us and make a decision. We sit up here and collectively make a decision because we've gotten your feedback as well. That's why we're out visiting sites, knowing what's happening, going to events. We know what this district is all about. So know that this decision was not predetermined. And just like our budget advisory committee, none of that information is predetermined. We asked the superintendent to form this committee, or the superintendent asked the board to form the committees as we go along. We used to not do committees. It was more of a staff project. And now we decided to move to committees, and it's very valuable. So understand that it's important that your decision-making in those is important to this board, and it's valuable. So everybody was good on that. Your direction was taken, and we'll continue with this. All right, moving on to, this is our mental health and suicide prevention report. And we have Amy is back up, and Kelly is here as well.
Before we begin, we want to echo President Butler's acknowledgement of the tragedy on Friday and just give voice to the heartbreak and the loss that we're all experiencing in these and carrying with us in this moment. We've prepared this report in the spirit of accountability and acknowledging your authority and your oversight over our actions as public servants, and as modern education continues to call upon educators and the education system to really have a focus on mental health and universal intervention. We acknowledge that we are uniquely positioned to help promote the mental health and wellness and well-being of all of our students. So to this end, we wish to inform the board of our district actions and our partners and the protocols which we have relating to these matters, which are all really dictated by education code, by our board policy and our administrative regulations. We are unspeakably grateful for the individuals who helped and supported our community in the recent days. Staff, parents, volunteers, students who all come together in these critical times as a community. We have a meeting scheduled on Thursday to really reflect on our practices and as we seek to improve and expand our services to children. And I'd like to have Evie Zarowski, who's our prevention coordinator, come to the mic and sort of share a little bit about what our policies are as a district.
Good evening, Evie Zarowski, Prevention Program Coordinator for the district. And just want to start off to acknowledge our mental health services, our resources that serve our schools. We have Bay Area community resources that are in our high schools and at 2 of the elementary schools. We have North Marin Community Services in our middle schools and most of the other elementary schools, and then Partners serves Hamilton. And those mental health services are anywhere between 3 and 5 days in the schools, depending on the needs based off of principal request. And then 2 things that we do for awareness and prevention is that in September we did Suicide Awareness Month. There were newsletters out to parents and staff, students. There were activities around that. And then in last May, Karen Jimbo and I attended the tour of Novato to increase the mental health, or to bring Mental Health Awareness Month and some activities during the tour of Novato. And we did a lot of the materials that we had. We used the Each Mind Matters campaign, which sort of combines a social media aspect along with a lot of resources and awareness. Awareness activities also were during May, and I imagine we'll do them again this year as well, regarding activities at the schools and with parents and staff. And then, as Amy said, that we do follow the board policy, which is off of the Ed Code and the AB 2246 that came down in 2016. Our board policy was in place in 2017, and we have staff and student education and awareness activities around that and trainings. There's specific protocols for how to respond to any sort of ideation or attempts, or as the case that we had on Friday, in a post-vention manner. And there's also counseling available around those to help sort of stop that from happening. So then in the response, in the case of a death, there's a crisis response manual that was developed through MCOE and the Marin Community Health and Human Services. I believe Kelly Johnson was part of that as well, and Kaiser. So there was a large group with the school districts to come up with this protocol, and that's exactly what we followed on Friday. We mobilized the crisis response team and established a crisis center, and that went very well. We were up and running fairly quickly Friday morning, and we are continuing to have that crisis center at the school for the rest of the week, depending on the needs of the students. So it was kind of nice, too, to have it in connection with the Wellness Week, and being able to be part of those activities, I think really helped the students and staff as well. So the Crisis Center is staffed by the school psychologists, the school counselors. We had tremendous response from Bay Area Community Resources, along with North Marin Community Services and other certified district staff who were able to help out. So Kelly will, Kelly will take over.
Good evening. So, one of the things that we wanted to do is really recognize, I know that if you're not there, you don't see the way that a community wraps around the school. And so we just thought it was really important to acknowledge all of these partners that came in and supported Novato High. So, you know, even down, you know, it's even down to dogs who are, you know, providing that support. So it was a great way to see a community come together. And then I also just want to recognize Mark Brewer, who had amazing leadership through the process, and Arzu Aranapur, amazing school psychologist who really connected people. And then, so as Amy said, we'll be debriefing on Thursday, and of course we hope we never have to, you know, experience this, but we definitely want to be prepared as well. So, and then, oh, we wanted to acknowledge John Lenz. He spent the day with us from MCOE and really helped us follow that protocol, and I believe you all got a copy of the protocol, which, yeah, and it was awesome. We got to the, yeah, it is really good. And when we got to the school, the staff already had these all laid out on tables and, you know, just really going through the process. And that was the intent of the protocol, was that we would have a unified response across Marin County. And it was great to see that that was in place. Moving on. These are the professional development. We've really partnered with Marin County through the protocols as well as different professional development that is available. And so up until the SAFE talk that's going to happen in the spring, all of these PDs have already happened, and we really do try to push these out from Leslie Benjamin, just really making the community aware of the supports that are available, but also trying to build our community and that resilience. I know I wanted to say that Kessa hosted a Talk Saves Lives over at Hill. Behavioral health had the mental health first aid, but we also had that here in Novato at the district office. And then I know we're really looking forward to Safe Talk in the spring, as well as the SOS curriculum, which, you know, we've become very close with our neighboring districts, and having that communication about what is effective in other districts such as Tam and San Rafael, especially who have the high school. So I think we'll have more after Thursday and continue to improve.
All right. I do have two public comments, so I'm going to move to that if the board's fine with that. The two comments, I have Liz Nelson and Penny, what's your last? Janik, sorry. So just, you'll be back to back.
So I thought I was going to be the 3 minutes before, so I'm a little I'm not really sure where I fit in here, but I actually, I'm coming to you as a parent and a teacher. My name's Liz Nelson, and I've taught for over 20 years in the classroom, 24. I have an 8th grader and I have a 10th grader. And most importantly, I truly, 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 after all these years, absolutely love my job. I'm here because I'm incredibly concerned about the mental health of our Novato students. I'm also here to ask that we as a district allocate as much money as possible to develop our mental health services on every Novato campus. In order to prepare our students for life and ensure equity through mental health support, we must make our students' mental health this district's #1 priority. By making our students' well-being our #1 concern, we're teaching our young people that mental health does matter. While I believe that college and career classes are of value, I do not believe that they are as important as mental health education right now. I think we need a year-long mandatory mental health class where kids go and learn more about depression, anxiety, eating disorders, schizophrenia, and other mental disorders. And they need to be taught good coping skills and ways to get help. I pulled up the NUSD email the other day to take the budget survey, and my heart sank when I came to reduce or eliminate mental health counseling services for a saving of 300. I don't even know how much it was, to tell you the truth. But I thought, no way. This must be a non-negotiable item. We cannot take these funds away. Our students need us now more than ever. My feeling is that anyone that checks the box to reduce mental health has no idea what's really happening inside our classes. More and more teachers are seeing kids that have serious mental health issues. They're addicted to screens. They're consuming foods with chemicals. They're tired, they're overscheduled, they're vaping, which means they're taking in these harmful chemicals. And not to mention, they are scared to death of active shooters. They're scared of these lockdown drills. My interaction with parents used to be always about reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's why I met parents. And I have at least 2 conferences a week with 5th grade families that are worried about mental health issues with their children. Right now, teachers are asked to be therapists and advocates and mental health counselors, and we're not trained. We're not trained. So we need help before it's going to be too late. Mental health issues are becoming more and more prevalent in our classrooms, and it's such a young age. Most of our kids, okay, really quickly, we can't cut any more funding. We can't cut any funding for mental health issues. We need to get as much funding in this area as we can. It's changing, times are changing. It's big, this is really big, and I know you guys know that, but I'm just speaking as a teacher that's there every single day, every day. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Penny Janik, and I'm a parent of 2 Novato kids, and I also work at Pleasant Valley with Liz. I got the announcement just like everybody else about what happened at Novato High School, and I know a lot of people have talked about how sad they were, but the main thing that parents keep saying when they see this and when we see that suicide is on the rise is not, everybody wants to look for someone to blame. But in the end, it comes down to, in my opinion, as someone who has dealt with this in my own family, it comes down to that we have these programs in place for once a student reaches that point, once they've reached the point where they're suicidal, and that's great. I appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and I think it's probably very effective. And I'm actually surprised I didn't know about some of the things that you were doing, so that's awesome. But the area that I see lacking and that parents are discussing among themselves is preventative measures. And that's part of what Liz was talking about, I think, was mental health education for our students, presenting them with what a normal mental health should look like, what good mental health looks like for a 5th grader on up through high school. Because if they had that baseline education, they would be able to know more ahead of time when they're in trouble. Because what happens with these kids, and I know this from experience, is that once they reach the point where they're already considering this, you are almost too late. And if you think that looking at those warning signs that they give you are going to tell you which kids are going to attempt this and which aren't, you are wrong. Because if you speak to any parent who has had this happen to their child, they will tell you that they had no idea that their child would go through with something like this. So we are missing this. And I feel like at NUSD, at this community where we have so much, that we should be a leader in this area. And the thought of cutting funding is absolutely insane to me. We are intelligent people of wealth in this community. And although we gripe about whatever money we may have to put forward toward our schools, this is a priority for parents. And so I hope that my suggestion is that we put together a task force to work with these women who have been doing this, a task force of parents and community members and students who can tell us firsthand what's going on in the minds of their peers and help us develop ways to be more proactive on the end of, I don't know how else to say it other than preventing kids to getting to this point. And there's a lot of reasons why they get to this point. We know what they are, and now we need to do something about it. Because if this happens again, I know you all think when you read like the letter from Jim, you think, that's really sad and I'm glad it wasn't me. What's on the tip of my tongue when I read that is an apology to those parents because we didn't do enough. We were just simply not doing enough. So thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, thank you.
1 minute,
Yes.
Can I do a virtual blue card?
No, you need to fill one out. That's the protocol, sorry. But come up.
It's okay.
Yeah, just fill it out when you're done.
It's okay, guys, I apologize.
No, that's all right.
This is totally appropriate, and it wasn't really why I came here, but I couldn't agree with you more, and thank you so much for what you do. I'm Matt Elkins, by the way. I was at the memorial, but I know last week was a very strange week in that so many issues were reported in the local newspaper at Nevada High School called The Swarm. And one of them, so not only are the parents here and the staff and administration trying to find solutions and trying to see these horrific events in advance and prevent them, the students are asking for the help as well. It wasn't on the front page, but in the Swarm last week, there was a special article called "The Importance of Mental Health Resources," where essentially the kids, it's trickled down to their own acknowledgement of the potential and their own pain and their fear that they and their friends won't be seen or their issues won't be recognized, and that the importance of intervention is a real priority among, for the children. They want intervention, and they're begging for help. And they even talk about Redwood High School has a walk-in wellness center, for example. Something's very accessible, and by all accounts, many of the kids at that school feel like it makes a big difference. So that's really all I wanted to say, because it's all of this is trickling down right now. NHS teachers face salary struggles, and the revolving door of NHS administrators. There are alarm bells going off that have trickled, with our kids themselves. Sorry, and that's when it really begins to manifest and become, it becomes scary when the kids are afraid of all these things going on, whether it's finance, mental health. It's affecting them right now on the ground. It's just not us trying to figure it out. They're also feeling it. And I think we really have to, the idea of getting them involved with a lot of these issues, I fully encourage, because so many of them are ready now to participate in these issues. So that's all I wanted to say. So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Matt. We have one more. Yeah, just bring it. And then if you could fill one out, Matt, really. Yeah. I have to hold you accountable. Come on. Okay, Anna Salem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Salem with the Youth Leadership Institute, and I get to work with some of these amazing young people at all the secondary schools and our student reps. And the point you just made about students are asking for help, I think is critical, right? Like all we can do is encourage young people to advocate for themselves. And they are doing that. They have been making this clear that this is a priority for years. They have been asking and we have not been listening, or we have not been following through on what they need. Around mental health, all we can hope for is that someone's going to ask for some support, right? Like that is, if we are turning our back on young people who are asking for support, the message that sends, I don't know how we expect them to pay attention at school or to continue to ask for support when they've been turned away continuously. So I think that's important and critical. They're working on that. They will keep working on that. They will keep advocating for themselves. Hopefully we will listen, and hopefully we will make that change. I also all of these things are beyond amazing and wonderful and need to continue. And I also want to encourage us to think a little bit broader about what does prevention look like, and what kind of choice points are we making around how we're setting up our school and our community. I do think it actually comes down to even the bell schedule, right? Like, what are we doing to encourage a sense of community and belonging at a school site? There are continual ways that we are structuring our school that is furthering the isolation that young people feel And so I would just recommend we look at not just these kind of efforts, but how really everything, not just tinkering with stuff, not adding one-off programs, but really looking at the fundamental structure of our schools to see where a sense of belonging, where a sense of community can be furthered. So that's all.
Great, thank you. Really good 4 speakers, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking the time. I want to get to our students. Jimena, if you guys could comment, and DJ.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. I completely agree with every single one of you. We cannot risk cutting funds, especially now. And we need more mental health services. We also need more curriculum. I don't think it's enough to just implement it in 7th grade and 9th grade. It really hits junior year, senior year, and it's clear that it's gotten to some people the past few years. Seniors, juniors, like you're literally about to graduate, you're almost there, and then it's so concerning. I don't know how you can get that far and then just feel like it's not worth it anymore. And I just don't think that someone's gonna look back junior, senior year and think, oh, that one class I took 9th grade is gonna save my life, or I learned this about like mental health. Like, I don't think it's enough. And I really like the idea of the wellness center. I really like what Novato's doing this week. I'm definitely going to bring that up to my leadership class, because I think that is beyond important. So many kids at our school, like you obviously you can't see it, and then our generation is so like technological nowadays, so like it's hard for a parent to feel like they're connected to their child when they're like connected to their screens. Like, I understand that. Just asking for more effort from certain teachers too. Like, I know it's not your job, and I know that you're not specifically trained, but I have like solid 2 teachers that like I can totally go to about anything, and just feeling like you at least have one teacher on campus is super important. Like, I am so grateful for those at least 2 teachers. Like, I know plenty of kids, plenty of my friends that can't say that, and it's heartbreaking. And yeah, there's no room for cutting the funds, especially now, and I think it just needs to be implemented until later on in high school, not just the beginning.
DJ, do you have any? You don't have to. I just want to make sure that I'm checking with you. No, okay. Trustee Aguila and then Trustee Gasson.
Thank you for your feedback. Just wanted to know, so you feel comfortable sharing with 2 teachers. Are there any counselors that you feel comfortable with? Like, I'm just wondering about the roles of the counselors.
I don't know like the specific like mental health counselors because I've never gone to them, but like my school counselor, I 100% feel comfortable with. I know a lot of like my counselors, Miss Miss Trenthoff.
Your academic counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you this: why? And that's great that you have this teacher, and I think whoever those teachers are, and I think everybody should have those kinds of teachers, and I think those teachers who are those teachers for the students that really need to be there for them. So what made you go to a teacher versus like a therapist that would, is it because
I think because my language teacher, I've known him for 2 years now, and I'm in French. Yeah. So like, I think it's just the fact of being more comfortable with a teacher that you've had for more than just one school year, more than like just 2 semesters is really critical. Same thing with my art teacher. Had this my 3rd year now. So it's just building a relationship really helps me be able to just go and talk to them about anything and everything. So I think that's really important.
Building that relationship with trust over the years.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I look at the turnover of our counselors. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're
good
welcome.
information.
Trustee Gasson.
So I first want to say something as a parent, and I've just got to say, having a daughter who's now in middle school, and thinking about what life was like for me when I was that age, it is so drastically different, and I can't even begin to think of what goes through her head. With the school shootings, there's all this vaping. There's just pressure from there's this. Kids at that age are supposed to be doing a lot more, being more self-sufficient. That creates pressure on her. There's just so many more factors that technology feeds into that. One of the things that came up, I was at the Pleasant Valley Principals Coffee this morning, and we were talking about Fortnite and the impact that has on who these kids are going to become. As boys, what they're learning and what girls are learning, and what that future is for these couples in 15, 20 years from now. So I have a great concern just on a personal level, but also just because I see it, and and it scares me. Part of what I'd like to see, and I appreciate that we have this program in place for post recovery or the crisis response. I'd like to see more on the other side of it, and what we can do, finding out from the kids. Again, going back to what I just said, it's a different time. What we think was good or what worked maybe isn't the best way. What is it the kids want? Getting their feedback if we do have something that we're offering, is that really what they're looking for? Are these crisis lines helpful at all? Getting genuine input. And one of the things I was wondering, I don't know, I know there was some information that was handed out, but are there actually on campus like teen groups that are working on that? Are there like teen, I'm asking, are there actually like teen group? I mean, because to me, your peers help. I know sometimes it's hard to go to your peers, but are we getting feedback from them as to what they see is working and what's not working?
Yep, absolutely, and Principal Brewer can talk to about, we have a very passionate group of individuals at Novato High School who are very much having their voice be heard, and we're bringing them to the table, talking through what they need and making sure that we are building systems that are valuable and meaningful to them. We have some plans over spring break to do some small shifts at both campuses to ensure that this is more robust and more overt and apparent to our students, but it's absolutely on the forefront of our mind, and we're open to any and all suggestions from students, and we'll act upon those.
Okay. I think that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Mack.
So I appreciate everyone's comments, from the public coming to the meeting tonight. I think I've heard several people comment about the desire to put together a task force of some sort. I'd like to see if we could, whatever staff could do to pull that together and include students. I think that's really an important piece of it. And then see where that leads. That would be helpful, I think.
Trustee Mack.
Being another parent of a kid in the district, my first two were out by 2013, but my last one's a junior, and absolutely right, junior year is rough. And sometimes you worry. You see this stuff, and you just don't know. And solid kid, but this is all going on around him. So we need to reach out. And what really stuck with me is if there's signs, it's too late. We need to get in before the signs. And I don't know how, but that's what we got to do. And I know, Mark, you're working on it. Everybody wants to work on this, but, we got a lot of work to do. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Trustee Aguila.
When I was getting my master's in psychology, I was in an elementary school doing my internship, and the school had a box in the front office, just very inexpensive, shoebox. And then the students were able to go in the office without saying their name, putting their concerns, and they got to see me, or they got to see another therapist there. And I've asked for this to be in the schools. I know I've talked to some principals, and they like that idea, and some have a similar plan that's very similar to that concept, but other principals don't have that, and so I'm just asking again. It's not a very difficult thing to do, and just if you could check to see if that's something that's possible that we can do starting in our elementary schools. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Yeah, Trustee Gasson.
Sorry. I just found another question. During your presentation, you mentioned, I was looking under Mental Health Awareness Month, and you mentioned Mind Matters campaign. Is that something just through the district, or is that like a national program?
It's a national program. And what's really cool with Each Mind Matters is that there's many ways to get involved. There's the social media aspect. Then they also have the literature and the posters and that kind of stuff. They're very active Facebook as well. And they also have contests for students to develop videos, and then they post them, and districts can use them, and it's really kind of cool. They're sort of trying from every angle to reach kids.
So is this more focused on the high school level, or does it go down to?
It's secondary.
Okay, and then actually,
I think the videos are only high school at this point, but yeah, the program would fit all secondary.
Okay. I mean, I think I said this in another context too. I mean, I think that, kids are getting older a lot sooner. And, some of the stuff that I see already with my short time having a middle school child, I think the earlier we start and get them used to, introduced to things, it's probably better too.
Right. And when you're looking at suicide prevention programs, you'll notice that a lot of them, and even in our MCOE booklet, you'll notice that it's kind of not sure what to do with that. There's 2 pages of, prevention sort of information in that. So a lot of this actually is early intervention through the postvention is what you're looking at if you narrow it down to suicide prevention. So really the broader discussion is the social emotional learning and making sure that kids are resilient and they have hope and empathy for others. And that's teaching those skills and strategies. K-12 is going to be important.
We were actually just talking about this at the principal's coffee I was at today, that, the fundamental things that we used to just kind of have are being lost, and trying to, unfortunately the school is expected to try to pull all that in and teach that as well as everything else. So there's that piece of getting everybody up and being okay, being at school, whether they're hungry or, something, there's that piece first, and then there's the learning. And so, we were just talking about how to incorporate that more just at our own school site and doing the, the morning circles and stuff like that, just to help. But, it's,
We have to build those connections.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Mark, do you have anything to add, any comments you want to make based on what you're doing at Novato High or anything? I know.
We do have an update. I did meet with some I met with some students today around working on, we've found a location where we can start some stuff to work forward on a wellness center there. So I think that'll be pretty productive. That we've got a eager group of students that are seniors that want to see something started. So we actually, I think I have a way to get that going here in the next month or so. So I met with them today, and I'm going to meet with some staff members tomorrow in our counseling department right after break. And so hopefully we'll make some progress on that and be able to open a wellness center at Novato High at least, probably sometime, hoping in April. It's kind of what we're targeting, maybe sooner. So that was it was a productive meeting, and we found a location that's possibly going to work. Yeah, so it's good.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else from the board? Okay.
I think
This is-
if I can just tack
Yes.
in a couple more just concluding thoughts as our discussion has kind of
Sure.
brought to mind a few elements. We fully understand that we are in the middle of a crisis. As a human being, personally and professionally, I feel like I'm on this planet to care for children, and we've had a lot of discussions in the previous months about how to address this. We brought in a national expert, Diana Browning-Wright, who trained all of our counselors and administrators around student threat assessments teams. That training took place at the end of November with all of our counseling partners, all of our administrators, to establish our protocols for when students make threats about hurting self or others. And since that November meeting, we've had to convene those protocols over 15 times. So that tells you about what we as a staff are dealing with and as a community that we're dealing with. You'll see in my future presentation for our low performing students grant that we have a whole section in there on trauma informed schools, which is really currently the gold standard in how to teach children of trauma and how to support and care and nurture them. And we intend as an entire district to really make sure that we're educating our educators for how to have a lens and how to support this issue. Our Hamilton team is piloting something called the Stop It app, which is an anonymous reporting app. So Trustee Aguilar, the anonymous reporting for kids these days, that tends to be digital. I use this in my own work at Rancho Cotati High School, and I know that there are children who walk this planet because of that anonymous reporting app. And so we're piloting it in Hamilton, and we're hoping to bring that district-wide so that we can have these easy and immediate venues for children to reach out to trusted adults. Also coming up next school year, every student that gets a student ID, on the back of that student ID, there will be the suicide hotline number for them as well. So we'll be sure to convene the task force and report back to you on our progress, and welcome any partner that would like to participate with us.
Okay. I like the task force idea, and it looks like you're going to run with that, so appreciate that. Yes?
So I think that any parent who isn't scared to death about your kid, you're crazy, because there's just so many concerns. It's such a different world out there. And I know we all struggle with that. And I think that, our district is doing a lot of things, but there's just a heck of a lot more we need to be doing. It's my top priority. We just talked about it today. I would say it's our staff, and it's our top priority. I mean, if our kids need to be emotionally safe, we need to take care of them. You can't have any learning that's going to take place if that's not there. So we have a commitment to following up on whatever that is. The task force is a great idea. We have a wellness committee. And then the last positive note I'll say, Liz, is that we looked at the administrator survey results because we had a chance to meet last week, and I think it was ranked 1 to 54, and 54 is the bottom line, and the last one that administrators ranked was cutting mental health. So we'll hope that follows all the way through. But given the state of the world, I can't imagine that would happen. So thanks to everybody for your concern. I think everybody's preaching to the choir here about how important that is, and we will do our best to put forth some more plans and do more than what we're doing now.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our discussion action. As we stated at the beginning of the meeting, we added the African American History Month resolution, so we'll begin with that. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Hogeboom to present that item.
Thank you, President Butler. So the resolution in front of you is number 21, 2018, 2019 to adopt a resolution that declares that February is African American History Month. Unfortunately, we still struggle to make sure that we recognize all people in our curriculum in our schools, especially peoples of color, whether that's African Americans or Latinos or people that are traditionally underrepresented. And frankly, we have a lot of work to do on that front as well in our curriculum, because it's still a very white-centric and Eurocentric curriculum. And we need to do more to honor the perspectives of all members of our society. So I am going to read this real quick because I think it's very important. So whereas African American History Month permits society and schools to celebrate the achievements of African Americans, and whereas the Nevada Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in his or her own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. Whereas this observance permits society to re-examine its role in preserving the civil rights of all citizens, and whereas corresponding school activities held during this month encourage students to continue to strive for the best education as a means to fulfill their potential, and whereas achievements of African Americans have benefited all mankind, and whereas the History Social Science Framework for California Public Schools states that history curriculum of community, state, region, nation, and the world must reflect the experiences of men and women of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups and must be integrated at every level. Therefore, be it resolved by the governing board of the Nevada Unified School District that February be designated African American History Month, and that is up for this date on February 12th, 2019.
Thank you. Trustee Nell.
Well, I'd certainly be proud to make a motion to adopt the resolution, but I would like to add to it briefly. You know, as educators, it's our job to do our best to bring knowledge to our students and our community. And the purpose of this particular month, from my perspective, is to shine a light and some focus on the history of African Americans in our country. And we all know that there's bigotry exists, but bigotry, a lot of it is born of ignorance. But by focusing on something like African History Month on a regular annual basis, over time, it gives leverage and the ability for more and more of the rest of Americans to focus on what it's been like for African Americans to be part of this country. So, as an educator and one who doesn't like bigotry and thinks that bigotry can be fought with knowledge, I'm very proud to make a motion to adopt this resolution tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila is a second.
As a Latina and also minority, I'd like to second.
All right, so we have first by Trustee Nell, second by Trustee Aguila, to approve the African American History Month resolution. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Okay, thank you. And then moving on to the marketing plan with Target River.
Thank you again. So this is a little bit of an unusual item because it was recommended, one of the recommendations from our elementary school size committee, which I just reported to you today, but I think we saw the writing on the wall that this was going to be one of the recommendations. When I was at the California Association of Latino Superintendents Conference last spring, I had a chance to meet Brian with Target River, and he'd been recommended by some other superintendents, and we kind of started thinking about the idea of doing some better marketing for the district. And we knew that if this was going to be a recommendation, that now was a crucial time, because we either do it now or we hold off and do it next year, because people are starting to make decisions now. So actually, we had some conversations with Brian a few weeks ago so we could get some plans in place and do some preliminary work. So again, this was one of the top recommendations from the school size committee. As you all know, we've been experiencing declining enrollment and losing a lot of students, not only to outside district, but within Novato to private schools. Some of you saw the Petaluma mailer that we got a few years ago, which ticked everybody off. But local private schools are increasing their marketing. There's banners on DeLong as an example. And we frequently get asked how many Novato students are going to private schools, and we don't know that, but we know that it's increasing. And I think that it's not necessarily that there's new programs, but I think we need to do a better job of letting our citizens know about all the good things that are going on in the district. And so one of the Target River, who was going to be, Brian Epperson is going to be talking to you next and kind of telling you a little bit more about his firm, is a full-service marketing firm that has worked with a lot of different school districts. I've got a lot of recommendations. He'll share the ones that he's been dealing with. One of the things that we thought was really impressive was that every single district that they had worked with renewed his contract. So to me, that means that they're doing good work. So this is a little out of the blue, I think, in that it's coming forward so quickly. But Cabinet really felt like we needed to bring this to you to act on quickly so we can take advantage of the kind of recruitment season and jump on this. It's also a little out of the box thinking, and it's also spending some money to make some money. So the cost of the 4-month program would be about $49,980. I think the way Cabinet saw this was if we can retain or attract 5 students to Novato at 10,000 each. That'll more than make up with it, and we hope that it'll do that. We also know that with things like parcel taxes and bond measures and things, the more positive information that we can get out there in the community about what we're doing in our schools, the more important that is. So with that, I'm going to let Brian come on up and tell you a little bit more about Target River. Thanks for being here.
Of course, no problem. Good evening, Superintendent Hogaboom, Board President Butler, and fellow trustees. Thank you for the time this evening to share a little bit briefly about our organization and then specifically what we've envisioned and put into place for your district. So briefly, Target River, we are a target marketing firm. We love the word target because we're all about making sure that our clientele identify the right audience that they should speak to. We then put a plan in place to utilize the most efficient ways to market. If you think about all the different ways you are exposed to advertising during the course of the day, the opportunities are endless between direct mail or television or radio and all the different things. So we work with our clients to figure out what are the most cost-efficient ways to reach your audience that you need to talk to. And then the best part and most exciting part is to be able to tell the stories. What is it that's going on at our district school sites, et cetera. And so that's how we come to approach every client that we work with. Specifically within the education space, we work with a number of school districts from single school sites. I think our smallest school district is a single K-8 school site that has about 200 students. To our largest school district, that is the 5th largest in the state, Elk Grove Unified. We work in very diverse communities, from rural to very urban, from districts that have 60% plus ELL to 5% ELL. And everything in between. So I think our expertise comes in not with just a particular type of approach in marketing for a particular community, but very diverse, not only throughout the state of California, but also clients in Arizona and the state of Idaho as well. So that's a little bit about our overall background. As Jim mentioned, we feel very blessed in that the districts that we work with continue to come back to us. And I know that there's a list of many of our district clientele, and you're going to see a lot of them don't have a renewal yet, and that's because word has spread about the work that we've done, and so they've come to us. So many of those that you see on the list are in existing contracts with us now, or they are in preparation for next board approvals this week, next week, the following week for their year 2 contracts. And that's being passed out to you. Our work started with Chula Vista Elementary School District, one of the most recognized and awarded school districts in America. About 5 years ago, we've done 6 projects with them. About 2 years ago, we were invited by that superintendent to speak to all of the superintendents in the county of San Diego. After that presentation, that superintendent's phone rang and word started to spread of some of the efforts that we've been able to do for that district, which led to us being introduced to many others. And every district that we meet has a unique story, a unique personality, and unique circumstances. You have all one common vision and mission, and that's to provide and care a quality education in safe environments with high caliber staff. That's the consistent thing that we see with all of our districts. But what we love is when we get an opportunity to come and learn about your district and learn what's unique about the roots and the character of who you are. And I had the privilege to go visit with our creative director a couple of Fridays ago, 7 of your school sites. And we had a chance to spend the entire day there. I pegged 7 miles on my pedometer that day, so I got a lot of steps in place. And what was exciting was to get a really great understanding of what your slogan, engage, inspire, empower, really means. It's not words on a website. It's not words that you put on your flyers. It truly was exemplified in every single one of those school sites. From the elementary school on up to the high school. We got to experience that in the different classrooms that we saw, that we visited. And we went to multiple classrooms on every school site, whether it was an AVID class, a PE class, a fine arts class at the Marin School of Arts. And it was exciting to see and understand what is happening. And when we come to put a plan together for a district, that's really what we're helping you do, is take all of these amazing stories and amazing things that are happening literally every day in every one of your classrooms and letting the community know it. We want to create those discussions, those dialogues going on, because oftentimes in a community, people are sharing information that is either dated or inaccurate, potentially, or just unknown. You might be getting a referral, or somebody might be commenting about an elementary school, and their child hasn't been on that school site in 4 years. So we want to make sure that families in the community know everything that is going on, that is being put forth to help the children, whether it's academic-based, extracurricular-based, social, emotional, wellness-based. We want people to know the current and latest and greatest in how you are working to impact the families. So I'm going to quickly go through just a little bit of information here. Let's see here. Oh, perfect. Oh, okay. It's scrolling through. Oh. So I'm going to go through this real quick because I really want to focus on what we've been able to build for you guys in expectation and preparation for the timing of what you are considering a vote for. So key objectives, obviously, we want to strengthen the reputation of the district within the community. One thing that we were really excited about was this past November, 6 of our district clients had bonds on the ballot. All 6 passed, including one district who hadn't had a bond passed in 17 years, another school district whose every major media outlet in the county had said, don't vote for this, and the bond passed 70%. Now, we did not promote or talk about the bond in any aspect of what we did, but what we did is we told amazing story after story after story that the district was doing to impact children and impact families and impact the other stakeholders. So it was very exciting to see those results, and every single one of those superintendents, if they were here, would state that those programs helped impact the positive bond outcomes. We want to create community advocates. While we've been sitting here tonight, I get notified, because I'm addicted to it, I get notified of every inbound lead that comes for one of our school districts. So I've been sitting here with my phone pinging with emails of people wanting to volunteer right now in Borrego Springs, California, and in Palmdale, and in Amphitheater Public Schools in Tucson. These are parents that are saying, and community advocates that are saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. And that was one of the exciting things that I experienced at your school sites, and how we can embrace that even more, like the mentor program at Hamilton, or the program at the high school with the building of the aircraft. That was amazing. And the day that we were there were 4 volunteers in that classroom. How to embrace and involve the community more. Further promoting your great brand, obviously increasing enrollments throughout all grade levels, but imagine the power if we can get more and more children to engage and involve you at the TK and kindergarten level. So when I put my business hat on and I start looking at the lifetime value of a student and see, okay, if we can bring a new student in for 1 year, that's roughly $10,000 in value. But if we can bring that student in for 13 years worth of education, we have a real opportunity to provide a great product and quality education to them with obviously a greater return of value. We also want to make sure that we are ensuring that students that are within your system stay within the system as they transition from elementary to middle and on to high school. We want to make sure that we're closing any gap at all with students that might be choosing an alternative high school, either out of district or within district, that might be private, charter, or even some homeschool programs. I'm going to go ahead and jump off of this one here, and I'm going to dive into the work that we've already done for the district. So after we went and visited the school sites, we've put together a very comprehensive plan to tell your story and message using the most effective and efficient marketing tactics to reach your community. And that's where our collective dozens and dozens of years of expertise in marketing really comes into play. So the first thing that you'll see, when we build a campaign, we are creating a unique sub-page for your district's website, focused and dedicated to increasing the number of interested families, giving them a place where they can learn some of the key, most relevant information and raise their hand by either calling or filling out a simple form that lets you as a district know, hey, we're interested in enrolling our family. It might be an existing parent that's considering switching schools. They're giving you a chance to engage them before you lose them. So we really work to make sure that we're funneling people to a very concise, focused place where they can get the basic 411 on the top things that you're doing as a district. We utilize a lot of different digital tactics because with digital, with a device, we know where you're located. And so we know that we're talking to families that have, just from a proximity standpoint, the potential to want to enroll their child in your district. So we are utilizing different tactics like remarketing ads. Think of when you go shopping on Amazon and you forget to buy something or you choose not to, and then you're followed up with by banners that remind you about that item in your shopping cart. Remarketing is kind of reminding families that you're here and that you're ready to educate their child. We utilize display ads, which again are just other great digital ads here that tell the story. We want to pique people's interest, so we're sending some of the most compelling messages out there. You can see we've got a variety of them that are on the board up here, and we actually, as a company, we are testing these constantly. So we're looking at this and saying, okay, what's the engagement like of people that are exposed to digital ad number 1 versus number 5 or number 3. And so we are not just setting it and letting it run for the length of the campaign. We're going, wait a second, we're getting more people to call us or to fill out a form off of ad number 4. Well, let's make sure more people see that ad. So we're very analytical about the campaign as we go through it as well. We also would be utilizing Facebook as well as Instagram, as well as YouTube, which are your 3 largest social media networks out there. And so different than if the district were to put a post, that's considered an organic or free post. So about 20% of the people that like the district's Facebook page are likely going to see a post done by the district. Okay, so it's an isolated small group that is going to see that. We're going out above and beyond that to reach families that are in the community, different age levels, different age types, different messaging. So for instance, families that have toddlers, we want to send a different message to them than maybe a family that has a middle schooler because their needs are very different and what they're looking for in education as well. So we're really breaking it down from an analytical standpoint also. Please interrupt me with any questions as I go. I can talk fast. Again, examples of Instagram ads. Let's see here. I'll jump back and play the video that we've already put together in just a second. So one of the things that we love to do is showcase it from a visual standpoint as well. And one of the effective, powerful tools that we want to utilize for you is how many different ways people consume programs now, television shows and movies, right? Beyond just watching it through our cable provider or our satellite provider, 63% of families that have internet at their home are watching it through apps or devices. So Chromecast, Hulu, Sling, Fire Stick, your smart television, your apps on your phones. So we're able to deliver basically a television commercial to families in your community. If we tried to do that through the traditional ABC or NBC outlet, the budget we'd be talking about would be tens and tens of thousands of dollars, a lot more, and it would be reaching so many people that are too far away from you. So this allows us to utilize the power of a television commercial to tell your story and to pique interest. Again, we don't have time in a short video to tell them all the amazing things. We want them to put you on the shopping list, because if you're not on the shopping list, you don't get the enrollment. So that's one of our key goals there. We also have newspaper ads that are already prepped and designed, ready to go, that are telling again and showcasing some of the great things that are happening here on your different campuses. So there's different sizes based on the publications with the Marin scope. There's a great city guide that's coming out that we're prepped and ready to publish in. Oh, you can't see that one. Sorry, there's something that one of your schools is going to be recognized for in a couple weeks, and it can't be public for about 2 weeks. And so we already have the ad prepped and ready to go, but it's pretty exciting, and you guys are going to be happy. So We also have a flyer. This one is kind of what I call hand-to-hand combat when it comes to telling the message. So we create this, and it's available for the school sites to utilize, to pass out to prospective families, maybe email to families as well. But we get into the community. So we get this out to the preschools, the Montessoris, the private preschools. So again, we want to engage those people, those organizations, to help tell your story as well and encourage those students, those young children, to come and enroll in a Novato Unified School. Search ads. So this is a long, exhaustive spreadsheet that would take us about 5 hours to go through. But so much of the power in marketing nowadays is when we let our fingers do the walking, unlike through the yellow pages when we were all growing up, but now through a search engine like Google or Bing to find something. And so we've built an exhaustive campaign around when people go to look for what's the best local school in my neighborhood, what school has dual immersion, how can where's a great extracurricular activity, what are good sports programs, all the different type of terms that people use when they're searching for education-related things. We have an ad constructed around it. Your competitors that you are losing students to. We have ads directly combating that. So if someone searches certain names that I won't state, and like a private school, for instance, their ad might pop up or their listing, but we're going to have one right there next to them as well, saying, hey, you might be considering this XYZ school, but have you considered these schools also? Again, to get your schools on the shopping list. Okay? We would love, obviously, if we could have every prospective family in the community do what I got to do a couple weeks ago, and that's spend a day visiting all the school sites, right? Because how many of them would enroll their child in your school? Most of them. They would love it. They would be amazed by all the things. This gives us a chance to do that virtual tour, to take the story to them and tell them all the amazing things that are going on and give you an opportunity there. We also utilize the power of email to reach people, again, because we can geo-target that and know who we're reaching within the community. This is a fun one. So, yard signs. Yes, we love yard signs. And here's the reason. Imagine if you're driving down the street and you see a family with a yard sign about their school in their front yard. What does that say about them? They must really like their school. They don't even have to ask their neighbor whether they like it or not, because who's going to put a yard sign about their school if they don't really like it? But what's great is it creates water cooler conversations, right? Next time they run into each other at the mailbox or at the soccer field or church or grocery store, hey, I saw you have that yard sign about your school. What's going on? Why would you do that? We've seen great things with families having these in their yards, staff members in the community, again, creating that dialogue. Because we often find when we do surveys and we work with the districts on this, that oftentimes the information that's out there is misinformation or dated information. So let's get people talking about the most current relevant info now. We also are going to utilize direct mail, very targeted, very personalized. So this is an area where I know we all get a lot of direct mail, right? And if you're like me, you get your direct mail, you get your mailers out of the mailbox, and for me, I go right to the trash can. And I stand there, and I look at it, and unless it's a bill I've got to pay, it pretty much goes right into the trash can. So with direct mail, we're very unique and actually scientific, if you could imagine, with how we design the direct mail piece, including the paper that we utilize. So we use a slick, almost oily paper so that when it comes out, it stands out. We have the person's name on there. So if I were the recipient, it would say, Brian, come explore the amazing schools of Novato Unified. So we call out the person's name because we know that'll increase the effectiveness of the direct mail piece. All right. Any questions on those elements? I'm going to take a quick second here and play this. So this is the video. Let's see here if it plays okay. It's buffering. It's really good. I know some of the staff have had a chance to see it. I don't know if it's going to play because it's buffering, trying to load from Google Drive. We'll blame Google right now. I'll tell you, as I hear the rain, I'm reminded of my visit to, what's the middle school with the creek down the middle? Similoa, I'm thinking, and I heard the story about the boy a few years ago that got his kayak and went down the creek. I'm thinking this would be a great day to do that. Well, I don't know that it's going to play here. While we let that try to buffer.
Okay.
What questions
Yeah.
do you guys have for
Question.
me?
Trustee Mack.
I got a lot.
That's fine.
Okay. This is near and dear to my heart. I used to do this, so for FICO. So targeting, and Jim knows where I'm going to go on this. Well and good to target within our zip codes, but we have some really strong secondary magnet programs. Whether it's MSA, I'm guessing you already heard about that, and
Yes.
STEM.
Great program, yeah.
And then the DI program at Linwood. And the key there is let's go after those zip codes outside of us. So I want to make sure that's considered.
Yes, it has been,
Okay.
and we did analyze that, and that was part of the data we received from Cabinet were areas of opportunities
Okay.
for those beyond just the boundaries.
Right, okay, and then, so obviously, we're an LCFF district, and to our south is a bunch of basic aid districts, some of which have serious budget issues. Is there any strategy to maybe proactively reach out and, hey, we'll take a few of your students? It's something like that.
Right, we say it a little differently than that,
I'm sure.
but.
I'm sure. I'm known to be a little blunt sometimes. But,
We don't
okay,
want
I just
Jim
wanna make
getting
sure that's
calls
part
from
of the
his
thought
peers,
process,
so.
That's all. And obviously cooperatively.
Yes.
With that district, because they have a need, and so do we.
Right.
We can help each other out. Performance reporting in terms of the campaigns. What can you share with us as we're going through? Is there some sort of a monthly report you can share with us to show how things are working and all that?
They'll think I queued you up with these questions. No.
Softball. Yeah, very good.
Yes, we do. So there's real-time data in the sense of any of the inbound phone calls that are generated. That's not any, because some people may hear an ad or be exposed to it and then decide to look up the district phone number or school phone number off their website. But in most cases, we're utilizing call tracking numbers, which allow us to report to the district, here's who called, when they called.
PV.
Oh, my daughter's in that one. I didn't know it. Yeah.
Did you get your permission?
Nope, I had no idea. I'm sure I signed something somewhere.
Very cool.
Right at the beginning of the year, you want to go to school?
Yeah.
So again, that's a great way to keep the interest there. But back to your question on the reporting. So we even have it be able to notify the district if a call was missed with an email. So we have that reporting ability to follow up. Any of the email inquiries that come through from various form completions, those are distributed to the team. So that's your daily engagement that I was describing on
Sure.
my cell phone. And then on a monthly basis, we also provide a detailed recap of how many impressions, and so for everybody's info,
Yep.
impressions are a set of eyes that see an ad or a set of ears that hear an ad. We deliver a detailed update on how many impressions have been delivered so far on it as the campaign goes along as well. And then we provide an exhaustive, detailed report at the conclusion of the campaign that capsizes all that information.
And that's obviously critical, and obviously we'll want to see that just so we know what's going on. But what I mean, also beyond that, like any kind of way of connecting outcomes to activity.
Mic on.
It's on.
Did it turn off here?
Oh.
There we go. Okay. Ooh, wow.
I don't know if that's possible.
Yes, and so with our district clients, we have a lot of the post-campaign analysis. We have to engage and get them to do as much as possible as well. Some districts look at things and say, hey, our experts projected we were going to be down 245 students for this next school year. We were actually up 138. Success, they stopped there. Some districts have rolled up their sleeves a bit more detailed, which we love, and have actually taken just the leads that we've been able to provide them through the inbound calls and emails and done a data match to students enrolled. So they'll take those phone numbers, for instance, and match those against phone numbers enrolled with new students to identify that, which is also not an exact science, because I could call about an ad from my cell phone, but then when I enroll my child, give you my home number, so we wouldn't have a match there. But even with that matching, we see that districts average between 12 to 15% of the leads we give them turn into enrolled students. So even if that, with that conservative number, we know if we are able to generate 250 leads for you, you're going to see a definite increase in enrollments. So those are some of the different data points. We've had some districts get very granular and look at, increases by grade level. I know one school district, the superintendent called me and she said, Brian, I don't even know what the rest of the data is going to look like, but we got 8 new kindergartners out of this program for sure. I'm ecstatic, because she knows as a K-8 system, she's got those 8 new students for 9 more years.
Gotcha, okay. And then, I'm sorry, last question, and I'll stop hogging it. Differentiation of messaging, of approach based on grade level. Obviously, you touched on this earlier.
Yes.
You have a different message for your elementaries versus your high school, where you're touching on extracurriculars. So whether it's music or sports and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It's a different message there and targeting that. Can you speak to how you address that?
Yes, and so with the different platforms that we're utilizing, such as Facebook or Google Ad Network for display ads, or YouTube, we're able to go in, and what we do is we'll create different ad groups. And so we can identify and say, hey, we've got a message here that's talking about the TK and kindergarten level program. Let's ensure and select individuals who have children that are within that appropriate age group. And then we can go in and we can look at middle school, elementary school, high school as well, from different segmentations like that, so that we can differentiate the ads to the right audience type.
Trustee Gila and then Trustee Cooper.
Okay, so I just thank you for being here.
Of course.
I wanted to just get a little clarity here. So, and I'm not, and I see that you do wonderful work and everything, but I also see that, like, Leslie Benjamin does wonderful work in promoting our schools. So
why do we need to be here?
Yeah, why are we going to spend? I know we have to spend money to make money, but what is it that I'm just trying to, I'm just
Great
playing the devil's
question.
advocate. I'm playing the devil's advocate. What is it that you're doing that Leslie hasn't done, or that we haven't done? And you've explained some things, but I just need to ask.
Of course. No, thank you for that. Yeah.
People will.
Of course. So we often are looked at as the firm that can come in and support the communication staff. Some districts, it's one person. We have one client that has 8 personnel in their communication department. We still come in and do the heavy lifting. So we go above and beyond what they're able to do in the course of a given day with all the different things that they have in their role. And maybe there is a consistent schedule of putting a message out through the social media channels that the district has, for instance, like your Facebook page and your Instagram account. And those reach a small percentage of your community. And so what we're doing is taking that message and that voice and reaching a far greater audience quite efficiently. So one of the reasons that, I'll give you an example, Elk Grove Unified, they did their own campaign internally previously. Their communications director came from an ad agency previously, and they said, well, we can do this. And they decided to outsource to us because we brought in greater firepower when it comes to building these campaigns, constructing the targeting that we've been describing, looking at the cost efficiencies. So from a pedigree standpoint, I could list like all the different expertises we have, but for instance, we are a Google Premier partner, we're a Facebook Premier partner. What that allows us to bring is cost efficiencies as well to a district. So we're able to buy, our buying power is far greater than a single school district trying to go out and purchase direct mail pieces or digital ads. And so that's one of the values that a district has as well, is not just our expertise in how to most effectively target and get your message heard by the right people, but to also expose your ad to far more people because of the value we can bring in what we are able to get ads for versus a single organization buying on their own.
Yeah, so you do very creative work. But I wanted to also ask, do you work also directly to the programs, with the programs? Like, let's say, the dual immersion or, MSA or any of our other programs? Do you just work with would you work with Leslie? Would you work hand in hand with the individual programs?
Part of the things, and we did cover all the different media types, but one of the things is we have a series of news stories and press releases queued up, ready to be crafted as well, that will be highlighting a lot of the different programs, including some of those that you just mentioned, to be able to tell those particular stories throughout the greater community here, as well as the nation. And there's some strategy behind that as well, because we know if we write a great story about the MSA program and a newspaper in Chicago picks it up and publishes it on their website, that provides value to you guys because Google recognizes that and pushes your listing up in their search engine. So there's a lot of strategy there, but there's extra things that we'll be doing that will tell those particular, some of those stories. Recognizing facilities enhancements, programs, athletics, extracurricular activities, teacher recognitions. It's really a chance to take many more of the great things and tell many, many more people those stories.
Thank you. And the purpose of tonight's vote would be to use his services for just in case, or we need it. Obviously, we need it nowadays because of the declining enrollment. But so we don't have anything else in the agenda. I mean, as far as we're using his services just to have that material with us when we need it. And it's just for the, see, I saw the timeline, but would it be for, I don't know how to, so the purpose would be, because you keep talking about campaigning.
Yeah, so we've spent the past 30 days working, I don't know, probably a couple 250 hours as a team to prepare all that we've prepared to be ready in case you as a board voted as a majority to move forward, so that we can literally flip the switch on every single one of these aspects starting tonight so that your campaign goes live. So when Jim talks about timing and being out there for an immediacy to let people know as they make that school of choice decision that you're out there and this isn't something we're now going to take 30, 45 days to try to put together and you're a little behind the 8 ball.
And that's my question. It's in case we need to, tonight's purpose is just to have that information, use the services to have that information in case we need to do this forward.
The request tonight is for 49,000, whatever it is, to use their campaign and to get started with it tomorrow.
Yeah, it starts tomorrow. Start campaigning for a tax?
No, this would be, we would not be promoting and talking about a tax or a bond or anything.
And
this is all to get more children to enroll in your schools.
Yes, it's just to promote the good things about NUSD, and my question is nothing else, is just for that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We wouldn't mix that. It's different funding bucket.
Trustee Cooper?
I'm really excited about this. I think this is exactly what we needed, and we've been talking about doing this for many years. As a trustee, we're in the midst of a lot of budget cuts and a lot of discussions surrounding budget cuts, and there are those who would look at us and say, what are they doing again? They're spending $50,000 once again on another consultant. And really, the way I look at this is an investment in our future. This is a drop in the bucket compared to, as far as what I can gather from what your presentation was. This is going to be tremendous success to Nevada Unified. It's going to increase our ADA reverse or hopefully slow down what's been happening with respect to our ADA and declining enrollment. So I'm excited. So you've answered most of the questions that I had. What's included, like lawn signs? You had one up there, or that's certainly not included in this price, right?
Yeah, everything that we illustrated is included. So obvious, all the ad creation, all of the ad placements, all of the fees that are paid on all of the ad platforms, your rates, your placement for the different newspaper ads are included, the direct mail piece, the postage for it. If you can think of it, the answer is probably yes, it's included, yes.
It says all-inclusive. We need to hold them accountable for that.
Yeah,
we know. Let's please do that. And is there, then, so at the conclusion of month 5, it would be important to me to, as I think Trustee Max talked about, kind of encapsulate and look at the results and see, hey, that worked great, and here's 30 new students to our district. And so that would be really important to me.
Yeah, and that's something we love to work with. We want to be held accountable.
I'm sure.
You know, we take the money
Our
you
success
invest
is your
in this
success.
campaign dearly. You know, I'm a parent of 4. I'm passionate about education. I serve on 3 district advisory committees. I teach I've taught a GATE class for years at an elementary school district. I am quite involved with career and technical education with multiple schools in San Diego, not because it's good for my job, but it's because of what I love and do. So we take this near and dear.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Aguilar and Trustee Gasson.
Yeah, would this information be included in Spanish?
Yes, we will be, many of the
Wonderful.
ad elements we will be able to translate into Spanish because we're able to identify the device, what language their preference is set at. So we're able to serve many of these ads in the Spanish language also.
The videos, the lawn signs, everything.
Some elements, so mostly the digital ones, because we know that we can identify, for instance, a Facebook user, an Instagram user, somebody using their browser, what language type they're served in, so we can serve into that native tongue.
And is it translated, like, with the browser that you're talking about? Is it like Google Translate?
It's not Google
or-
Translate. We translate it,
Good, okay.
and so it's serving that, so it's proper translation and not. Yeah, and I'm not the one doing the translation. Don't worry. My 4 years of French are not going to help here.
Thank you.
Trustee Gasson.
Thank you for being here and for your presentation. And I will say that I do believe that the service is needed, or the marketing. I'm just questioning the timing of it for myself, and I will be one of those people that says, why are we spending $50,000 when we're trying to cut? So you've alleviated some of my concerns about, quantifiable results. My concern is that we go through this and then we can't quantify, okay, what kids did we attract or to the school? One thing I'm wondering, and I get the whole idea of where you're working from, with the exception of, I'm also curious about the people that don't come here. Like, what are the reasons that they are not here, and maybe looking at that somehow, or figuring out what is it that will turn, my friends that are homeschooling their kids around to actually bring them to NUSD. So that's a component. I don't know if we can figure out who to ask or how to do that, but I think that that's a missing piece, because there, we can go ahead and keep trying to find out who, keeping people maybe from, or kids from making a choice to go to another school. But if we don't understand why they made that choice, I think that's a missing piece to not have. So I don't know how we go about that if somebody does that.
If I may speak briefly on that, while there has not been a pre-survey done by the district to identify those questions, we have looked at a lot of that data with many of the districts that we work with, who are as I mentioned, various sizes, cultures, economic statuses, et cetera. And we consistently see common things that rise to the surface when it comes to school choice. And I apologize to be redundant, but a lot of time it's dated information. Well, my school didn't have this. Well, actually they did, you just didn't know it. Or they were wooed by marketing by a private school or a public or a charter school that's telling these great things, yet the local public school district has that and 5 times more. And so we're looking at, oftentimes it's just not knowing all the information, but we're also looking at some of the key common themes that come out again and again and again. Is my child being taught in a safe environment, right? We all agree that that is one of the top 3 reasons collectively we always see. Is my child being cared for by qualified and trained staff that are continuing to grow? So are we taking those themes and weaving them into our messaging so that when families hear our message, are they being reassured of that information? What are the opportunities to prepare my child for their best future selves, whether that's college or career? And making sure we showcase those things within the messaging as well. That's another top theme. And then, of course, as was a great discussion tonight, what is being done for the social and emotional wellness of my child as well? And do I feel comfortable placing them in the care and custody of you for 180 plus education days? So while there may be some unique things, consistently we see those are some of the top reasons again and again people are choosing to or not to enroll a child in a local school district. So we want to make sure we're covering that information.
Okay, thank you. And I will say I'm actually a byproduct of not knowing certain things. I didn't know about AVID until my daughter started middle school. And, you know, so I can see that perspective, but I also think that you're narrowing in on why people make the changes, even if there's like a general theme from other locations, just understanding that so that we can proactively do things to make sure that we improve that too at the same time. Actually, it was great about the additional costs because that was one thing. I know Mailer's having just run a campaign and the cost of all that, so that's all included in there.
Yes.
So that helped to know that. One of the things actually that I thought is an offshoot from this on an upside that we could potentially benefit from this if we do it is the perception in the community as a whole. Because if we do have to go out for another parcel tax, it was hard the last time. And I think if we start, one upside I see from this, even though it's not directly what it's for, is that having a positive messaging out there that people start talking about and hearing might help actually turn that around and make it a little bit easier, whatever is decided on that front. And the only other comment I was going to make was that with respect to timing, I get that we need to do this. And again, I don't disagree with it, but I'm having a hard time with the timing of it, partly because we have so much going on with construction and I don't know. I'm wondering if adjusting it just a little bit might be better. But I mean, obviously I'm just throwing that out there. We got a lot of great things coming down the pike. So is it better to not have those yet and start doing this now, or waiting until, the high school fields are done and the MSA building is redone? I don't know. I'm just wondering, I know we're starting at the lower level and some kids may not get to there. I mean, if we're attracting TK kindergarten families, that's a long way off. But if we're trying to get those kids to not go to, Marine Catholic and stuff, but we're going to have a construction zone next year. So just some thought.
Superintendent Hogaboom, and then I'm going to Trustee Mack.
So just real quick, we do that retention survey, and we did a survey about why kids leave to the best of our ability, and sometimes they leave because they move out of state or whatever, but we can review that information with Ms. Benjamin and see if there's anything in there specifically that we want to try to address.
Trustee Mack.
You don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
All right.
So if you were to speculate, how many ADA you think we might get out of this?
To me, it's easily achievable to generate a minimum of 250 leads for your district.
And then the conversion rate on those 250, what do you think?
It's the lowest we've seen is 9%. The highest we've seen is 15%.
Okay, so got it.
Mm-hmm. Trustee Nell, then Trustee Aguila, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Actually, that was a great segue for Trustee Mack. I was joking a little earlier. I feel like I'm at work right now.
Yeah, we're talking about return on ad spend and ROI and all of that stuff.
Variable data marketing. So here's my question is going to be for staff. I think marketing works. That's why people spend a lot of money on it. And it's a very sophisticated program that's being proposed here, and I'll go ahead and give the benefit of the doubt that the targeting, marketing, research, et cetera, is valid, and I'm convinced it'll work with the lead idea. But here's where companies need to be prepared, and I wonder if we're actually in a position to deal with the response. Because when the call comes in, or the email comes in, if we don't have trained customer service representatives, sales-minded personnel in place to take those calls and to do discovery conversations, identify them whether they are or not a target or it's a scam. You get a lot of people waste time responding to ads and things. But I think this is most of, in the world I'm in, most of the problems we have with the customers is, are they prepared to deal with 80 contacts a day all of a sudden? So my question is, are you and Leslie prepared to deal with these responses? Do you think, and then can that information be disseminated down to staff levels? I mean, I don't really know what you guys, I mean, that's where I don't see this thought through yet. So we get a call, somebody wants to know about Novato High School. I'll transfer you to the office manager. That would be a bad thing, I think. So I just, I'd like to do this, but I'm gonna have to insist that that we spend a little more time. Maybe I didn't hear anything in your presentation that emphasized the amount of training that is. But maybe you've done this before. But essentially, how can you assure us that we're going to be able to be trained and in a position and have the capacity to convert these leads?
Okay. One thing, and then I'm going to let you. So we, in working with districts, obviously each district's going to handle it differently based on their staff. We have some districts that do a quick survey, okay, which, assessment of what program or grade or that the child's into, and then they engage, if it's at an elementary school level, oftentimes a site principal for that. Others have district staff, 2 to 3 people that are trained to handle those. What we do ultimately is work with the district to identify the best plans, and we also work with them as these leads come in, how to get them involved and engaged, how to take that lead and ensure that they now are engaged on your social media channels so that they receive future updates the next time you post on Facebook or Instagram, or if you send out an e-newsletter, how do you ensure that they're now subscribed to your newsletter as well? So we've got different opportunities to try to engage that person and not miss that opportunity, because you're right, the last thing we want to do is have someone call in all excited because they saw a video or the newspaper ad and then not hear from somebody for 2 weeks. So Leslie will probably be sick of me after the pestering to ensure we are on that.
I'll just make this really quickly, but I am the contact person for when those leads and emails or phone calls come in. And so I would be sort of that first person to say, well, yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I'll do some investigate and probably direct them to the appropriate person at the school, whoever it is, probably a principal or somebody like that. I do that right now. We have an info at NUSD.org. I get a couple of those a week, and I either answer the question myself or I direct it to the right person.
Leslie, do we have a CRM? And if we don't,
Not really, but I mean, we can certainly create one and start doing that.
What's a CRM? Who? What?
It's a
Oh, okay.
customer relationship management system. It basically allows an organization to track a lead and identify what happened to the lead over the course of the life of that. So we actually have a template for of a spreadsheet, kind of more rudimentary one, but allows a district, because most school districts don't have CRM tools, to be able to track the path of that. Okay, lead came in, did we engage? Yes, no. When did we follow up? When did we leave a message? To ensure that there's multiple touch points with that individual and family until we kind of reach a point of exhaustion or they've answered it and an outcome's been identified. So that is a template that we provide as well as a resource. And again, because we want to be able to come back and have great news to share with you as a board, we're encouraging the district to ensure that they're participating in that Plus, we'll always give Jim's cell phone out if we need to, right? So,
What happens when you go away? So after the 6 months, 5 months, you go away, what happens with all the material that you created and everything? Is that ours?
so the video is yours, yes, and all the photos that we captured on site are shared with the district as well. So the Facebook ads and those things, those just have a shelf life of the period that the ad ran on that particular platform, so those go away. But in terms of the video and all the great photos and everything that we captured, those are for the district to utilize however you'd like.
Okay. All right, all right, two more. Trustee Gasson and then Trustee Aguila.
I just have a really super quick question. I suspect I signed something. My daughter is in the video. So have we alerted the parents if that goes live?
Yeah, well,
Or there's something I
we
signed,
checked all
right?
that ahead of time. So we told the principals that, to check whoever the students are going to be. So we did that up front.
So
So my specific question though is, did I sign something that said any photos taken on campus or?
At the beginning of the year, when you
That's what I'm
signed that sheet about
Okay.
a parent acknowledgement form.
Okay, I wasn't worried about myself, but I just don't
No,
want
and
somebody
we-
to, like, I just saw my kid on this, so I'm like, oh, there she
yeah,
is. I didn't know.
It's pretty entertaining to see how many kids are excited about being a YouTube star or something as we go around. But to your question though, as we went around each school site principals, or in one case it was an assistant principal, had the list of students who had opted out of their image being utilized in any sort of messaging and that.
Okay.
So we were cross-referencing that. Teachers were engaged and involved. Oh, this child cannot be filmed. So we focus on this part of the classroom or slide them over so we wouldn't disrupt their schedule.
Yeah, that was just checking. Like I said, it was
No
a surprise
problem.
to see her, and I actually have a couple of Girl Scouts that we can't photograph, so
Got
just
it.
sensitive to that.
Okay, Trustee Aguila, and then we'll.
So in
forward.
5 months, according to your timesheet, that's when the campaign ends, and then we start seeing results when?
Should be in the next week or so. I mean, literally, you're going to start getting phone calls. If you approve this, you'll be getting phone calls by Monday. Once we turn the campaigns on, it takes a few days for the.
Will you put Superintendent Hogumum's cell phone as the response number?
And we're on break, so we'll get back to them in a week.
So that's interesting because Trustee Gaslin said, okay, well, this could be useful for like tax purposes, for like if we want to ask the community for money or whatever. And actually, I'm going to vote for it because hopefully by accepting you, we don't have to, we'll see results and we don't have to go to the community. So.
Or if you do, hopefully it'll be an easier yes in the future too, so.
But I'm voting so that hopefully we don't.
Understood. Makes sense.
That's a lot of
Right.
kids.
Madam President,
Okay.
I'd like to move approval of this marketing plan.
Okay, so we have a first by Trustee Cooper, a second by Trustee Mack. All those in favor to approve the marketing services agreement with Target River? Okay, 6-0.
Thank you very much for your time. I know we
Thank you.
spent a lot on the
No,
topic.
This was, I think the report itself wasn't enough, and you added so much more to it that helped
My pleasure.
bring it together. Thank you.
Are we ready?
All right, let's continue on board. Are you, okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 more items, and it's approaching 10 o'clock. I just want to make sure everybody's on board to continue. If you're not, okay, you're good then. All right. We're going to continue on. These are our, continue on with our discussion action. Thanks, Matt. And turning it over to Chris Koska.
Hi, thank you very much for having me tonight. This is actually, I think, an exciting opportunity. A couple weeks ago, we ratified a tentative agreement, or we came to a tentative agreement with Novato Federation of Teachers around the closure of our contract. This is a big one because this is the entire contract was open. It took us a little longer than we all would have liked, but I believe that in the end we came to the best agreement that we could. Anytime you have an agreement like this, there's give and take. There are things in here that maybe the district wouldn't love to have in the absence of having to negotiate, and vice versa, same for teachers. But in the end, this was the best agreement that we could come to meet the needs of both NFT and the district. So a little high-level information about the agreement. We agreed essentially to a 2.06% increase to each cell on the salary schedules for NFT. We added some steps towards the top of the salary schedule to honor those teachers who have been in the district for an extended period of time. So that would be steps 26, 28, and 30. So that's for teachers who have been in this business for 26, 28, or 30 years. Additionally, we made some adjustments to the psychologist salary schedule. What we found is that that salary schedule was very much in line at the top end of the salary schedule, but compared to our comparable districts, it was out of whack at the beginning of the salary schedule. So we made some adjustments to bring the beginning of the salary schedule up, and then we sort of renormed the salary schedule. Another thing that's exciting out of this, we will collaboratively work with NFT to come up with a new teacher evaluation tool. I heard there's a little bit of concern about that. I want to reiterate, this is going to be a collaborative process that we participate in with NFT. This isn't going to be a top-down NUSD process. It needs to be negotiated. Both sides need to agree to it. And we want to find something that serves our teachers and our administrators better. That's our only goal. All in all, there's, of course, a cost associated with this for 18-19. And 19-20, the cost is a little less than $1 million. And in 2021, the cost will be a very little bit more than $1 million. So, the superintendent and staff recommend the ratification or your approval of this tentative agreement with NFT to settle negotiations for the 2018-19 school year.
Board members, questions, comments? All right. Okay. We have a first by trustee Mack, a second by trustee Cooper. No discussion. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. 6-0, 1 absent.
All right, thank you so much.
Moving on to the AB 1200 with Yancey.
All right, so one of the important things around AB 1200, outside of its the interim assessments that we do and the certifications that this board and the county office work on, is around our collective bargaining. And so every time that we finish a collective bargaining with either of our units, we are required to do an AB 1200 report that notes how much the agreement will cost the school district, as well as how we are planning on paying for it. The other thing that's very important is that both Jim and I have to sign and certify that we have the funds available to afford this agreement. So I will say that Jim and I are comfortable signing that, but we do need to be clear that while we have in the third year out of this multi-year projection in the AB 1200 review enough funds to stay above the 3% state mandated reserve, what that doesn't have would be the fourth year out in that multi-year projection, which would push that under. You will also note in the sections around how we are going to afford this. What's not included in those multi-year projection is the $1.5 million in reduction that this board has directed staff to make recommendations on. It also doesn't include some of the positive information that was received in the governor's January proposed 2019-20 budget. Those impacts in the January are a little less than $1 million a year. So what's not included in those multi-year projections in 1920 and 2021 is a $2 to $2.5 million improvement in the district's financial position each year. So, but one of the reasons I did not include that is we have not approved those yet. And so we will be bringing those obviously for review on March 12th and again for input and then for approval on later in March. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions about the process or about this agreement.
Okay, board? This is a trustee Nell.
I just have a comment. It's combined with both these, agenda items. I think it's important to recognize the work that's been done by our negotiating team and the bargaining unit for the teachers. Everyone is trying to succeed at this. That is the goal, and it's a matter of priorities and where we're going to move money from here to there. So I think, though we are at sort of the dry, here's the financial statement, evidence part of the thing, it maybe might have been more appropriate when Assistant Superintendent Koska was up here to recognize the efforts and since the sincerity in which we enter into these bargainings and try to come up with solutions that are going to work for everyone. I know I speak for the board when I say we value our employees here. Without our teachers and the rest of you, our kids wouldn't be learning. So we have to find ways to make it worth your while. You're all professionals, and I just thought that should be part of the statement as we go forward with, I'm assuming, approving these. So thank you very much to our teachers and to all of you that helped put this agreement together.
Great, thank you for saying that. I'm trying to move us along, and I'm glad you made those comments. No, that's great, thank you. Anybody else? All right, this is a discussion action. So I need a motion. Somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll move.
Okay. All right, so we have a first by trustee Nell and a second by trustee Aguila to approve the public disclosure of the collective bargaining agreement for NFT pursuant to Government Code Section 3547.5. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you, Yancy, Chris. Thank you, and Jim, for your work. And moving on to the comprehensive safety plan, Leslie, you presenting. With your 300-page report. Can you make it 1 page? Nope.
Okay. Leslie Benjamin. I want to thank Bill Welch for being with me here tonight, hanging out. He's been instrumental in helping, really pull all of this together. There's been renewed interest in, renewed focus on California school safety plans the last couple of years, and so there's been some new requirements. So the requirements come from SB 187, the Comprehensive School Safety Plan, AB 1747, School Safety Plans, and our own board policy for Comprehensive Safety Plan 0450 encompass those to SB 187, AB 1747. So top level, we have to annually review our safety plans with staff and community every year, identify and remedy staff concerns, safety concerns, and report these to the Marin County Office of Education by October 15th. Get feedback from the safety plans from our local law enforcement and fire district, and present it to the Board of Education by March 1st for approval. So we based this, our comprehensive safety plan based on the Marin County Office of Education's model plan, and we update it annually. And we based it on this about 7 or so years ago. So every school and department has the red, what we call the red binder that has everything in it, and it's divided into 2 sections. And so the first section is site-specific information, and that we did not publish because it is site-specific. It has some. But anyway, this is the binder that we keep in the superintendent's office with every school in it. So we have that. And then the red binder is just general information with checklists, emergency actions, protocols, everything that we need. And so every year by September, we've given direction to all of the schools. And so by September 1st of each year, they submit their section 1 to us. The superintendent's office, the emergency prep team looks at it, makes sure it's all, there isn't anything missing. We have all the pieces, or if there's any questions, we go back to them. By October 1st, they need to review the safety plan with their staff and hold a public meeting. I have included on one of the attachments or the dates when they had their public meetings. By October 15th is when we need to report to the MCOE any schools out of compliance, and that's an attachment too. It's a very comprehensive report with everything in it. And by March 1st, I presented to you for approval. And then this spring, by August 1st, we look at the safety plan, and and we get feedback from the police, the fire, and the sheriff. We send to the sheriff's office also, and then we'll make any updates, and then we provide all the schools with updates. That's it.
Wow.
It's a lot of information that I try to condense into very short.
I heard, yes, trustee Aguila.
Okay. The two binders, who could see those two binders? Administration, obviously,
Yeah.
everybody
Well,
here is a public
This is
record?
pretty much public information.
Public
It can go
information.
anybody. I mean, if anybody really wants to come see the school safety plans, they're welcome to come in and look at them.
Okay, and is that binder also, I'm wondering, has it been translated to Spanish yet?
Which binder?
The one for the school sites, the white one.
The white one? No, this is for our use.
Okay. But I thought it was public. You just said it was for.
Well, I mean, if
public.
somebody wanted to come and see it, sure, they could come to the superintendent's office and come and see it, or ask at the school site to look at it.
Or have a translator.
Yeah, if they need.
If
Yeah,
they need,
if
they need
needed
a
to, be. They could
translator,
have
yeah.
somebody interpret for them. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Trustee Nell.
I'm glad you're working on this because there's nothing better than to be prepared in the event of an emergency. And having served on a similar committee as a community at large member for the city of Santa Fe as a business person at the time, I can tell you this is a lot of work. There are a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of partnerships and communication with all the different entities that it takes to keep a community running. And in a worst-case scenario, wildfires, earthquake, something even worse than that. But I think that it's good that we have proof that we are working on this, that we have our red binders to go to, because when the emergency happens, guidance is going to be important. So thank you for taking on this responsibility.
You're welcome.
Two random questions. Does every site have an off-site location for evacuation? They know exactly where to go.
Yes. I'm looking at Bill, because he's been working with all of our school sites on that.
That's kind of
yes.
one thing you kind of, you think you know, but it might, yeah, okay. And then emergency cards with the elementary and having them in the system as soon as possible with School Mint, has that made any difference, or?
Well, I think,
I'm thinking of the old school way of sitting there with the attendance clerk, entering a pile of emergency cards, and
Right.
it's March, and they're still entering emergency cards.
right. So I'm hoping that, I don't think that's happening anymore. So what Cassandra Diaz in IT and I've been advocating is printing them out. And I think a lot of the schools are just printing them out, either from Aries or from School Mint. And I think in the past couple of years, many sites have been printing them out from Aries and not using, whatever the emergency card is. So I think it's just sort of shifting our practice in how are these emergency cards going to look like.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay, trustee Gasson and then trustee Aguila.
Actually, thank you for your question. It actually triggered two little things. One, I think you'll be getting a call from Mrs. Sedan about the the program.
School Mint?
School Mint. But, so I actually used to teach disaster preparedness, and I've done a lot of stuff over the last 20 years with safety, so this is totally up my alley, and I'm glad to see it, so thank you. But your comment triggered something, making sure that the paper copies are, I know I actually said I didn't want to do all digital on something today, and I got attacked by a couple of parents because they're like, but why can't we just do it? Well, stuff goes down, things malfunction, so making sure that the school sites have that backup and realize that there are times when you have to have paper and have it all ready. Because I actually remember I actually participated in a drill at our school where the teachers are sitting there with these big binders checking and seeing if I was trying to take kids off of campus, and the Girl Scout mom, that she's in my troop, can I take her off, and whether I'm on those sheets or not. So I think we forget because so much is in technology, but when stuff goes down, do we have everything that we need that we don't have to use a computer or use whatever. So
Trustee Aguila?
Oh, I just wanted to make a motion.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
So we have a first by trustee Aguila. Any second? A second by trustee Mack. This is I'm not gonna, let's see. This is approving the comprehensive safety plans and the attachments for all of NUSD. Okay, all those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. That's the IT
Thank
alarm, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so we have Amy is up in the last 2 items. This is bringing back for a second reading 6146.1, the high school graduation requirement, which I think was presented on the 15th of January. Okay.
All right, this is a second reading. We wanted to make sure that you had some time to reflect and talk to your constituents around 2 of the optional elements that we are recommending we place into our board policy. And of note is the one of individuals who in grade 12 departed from California against their will, that we would retain the opportunity to find ways to make sure they got their high school diploma. The other optional element is the honorary high school diploma for international exchange students and for individuals who are terminally ill. And we feel that this reflects our values as a district, and we recommend that we move forward with those adoptions.
All right, trustee Nell.
The process for, what are they called, honorary graduation? Okay.
Yep, honorary diploma.
So are we, we're appointing a designee, the board is appointing a designee to make those decisions for us, or will those decisions come before the board?
For individuals who,
If you're making a recommendation for an honorary, for terminal or international reasons,
yeah, so we'd just use a designee in that instance.
would that still come before the board on consent or some other method?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So what that would look like is Amy would be the designee, and so if we had a foreign exchange students like Maria's nephews that were here last year and we wanted to give them an honorary degree or something, then Amy would be the one to work with the principal to make that decision.
So that's the problem I have. I mean, ultimately, it's our responsibility to set the standards for a diploma or graduation, meeting graduation requirements. And it seems very autonomous to me. So it's up to the board, but I'm simply asking for some acknowledgement that it's a recommendation and that we approve these honorary degrees.
And to clarify, this is not a high school diploma. This is an honorary high school diploma and would be signified as such.
Official.
Correct.
Can you make the difference, clarify the difference between a certificate versus?
So very similar to a certificate of completion. Those certificates of completions are for individuals who have IEPs, and there's a specific passage in Ed Code towards that. So this just gives us an opportunity when we have those international students so they can participate, they can dress in the gown, and they can receive sort of an honorarium for being a part of our school community that is not the equivalent of a high school diploma.
Yeah, I get it. So how about this? How about we move ahead with the board policy, but are there going to be any administrative rules and regs that are going to come forward on, since we've updated the policy? I'm assuming we've got some A&R on graduation
Yes.
requirements.
So if the board adopts this policy, then we return back as an Ed Services team and establish what those criteria and protocol are.
Okay, I'm just going to recommend that we adopt some double check on this particular item. It's my recommendation, but I'll leave it up to staff and the board to decide.
Okay, thank you, trustee Nell. Anybody else? Okay. I wasn't here on the 15th, so I'll be real quick. On page, so you have 2 years of science on page 2, number 3. 2 years of science. And then on number 10, it says 1 additional year in science on page 3, number 10, and 1 additional year in science, including, is it 3 years of science we're
So
saying?
education code requires the 2, and
that
then Novato Unified requires the 3rd, so that's why it's pulled out
It would be
separately.
nice if it said the 3 years, though, but
Mhm.
you have the education code reference there. So it has to be worded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for clarity, we can go back and make that change.
Yeah, I think it would be, because then, if I don't get to number 10, then I'm thinking, oh, I got 2 years of science, and I know this is not the only place to
Correct.
find this information, but.
Yep, makes sense.
I want it to be clear.
Yep.
Okay. That was it. All right. So we want to move approval of this at the second reading, and then it won't come back again. This will be it.
Well, so, yeah, I'll move the board policy as amended on page 2, I think it was item 3. You were
yeah.
suggesting it say 3 years in science.
Yes.
So as amended, I'll move the policy.
Okay. Second, anybody? Okay, trustee Aguila is a second. So we have a first by trustee Nell, a second by trustee Aguila. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 out.
All right, the last item is the acceptance of grant funds. Leslie Benjamin stepped in as our grant writer in this project and was able to procure some funds to help Novato Unified address tobacco issues. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Gasson?
Okay, don't anybody kill me. I have a lot of questions. And actually, I was excited to see this. I didn't know about it, and I talked about it at the Pleasant Valley Principals Coffee today, I think. I don't remember. So my primary, I think it's great. I appreciate that we got these funds. My first question goes to the school resource officers that this is funding. Where has it been funded from before?
The school resource officers?
Yes. Well, it says up here that.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the city of Novato. Jim?
Yeah, so we haven't funded those since I've been here. I mean, you can ask Ms. Butler or whoever else about how that used to be funded, but when times got tough, we cut the school resource officer and brought in North Bay Security instead.
But we have resource offices right now. So is
Yeah,
this
the
for right
city's-
now?
Yeah,
or-
this year the city of Nevada's paying for them.
But this says 2018-19. So are we in fact paying for the SROs now?
Ms. Benjamin will clarify it.
Your knowledge exceeds mine.
She's like, darn, he asked that question.
Well, when we wrote this, when we did this grant and submitted, they said they were going to get back to us in November, and it was late November, early December, and we didn't get the MOU until recently. So Susie Hirschfeld is trying to figure out if these funds can roll over, because realistically, for us to find anybody in the next few months, I mean, talking with Chief McGill, there's sort of a long recruitment process. So we're trying to figure that out, so if we can roll these funds over, because we did notice that there's quite a bit in this first year, and this first year ends pretty soon.
Okay, so that furthers my question though too, is that after, well, I guess I'll think of it when we get closer to it. I'm just wondering, I don't want them to go away. And so the way I'm looking at this is how we're funding it.
Yes.
And so I just want to figure out, and I'm always forward thinking, if we can push that, if that is the way it is, then it would be great to keep them as long as we can. Because
Right,
then
so-
we're also going to
so-
have to start thinking about where we're going to get the funding for in the future. Because I really don't want them to go away. So thank you. So my other question has to do with, and I have to, such small writing. So I inadvertently, I called, the presentation on vaping that happened at San Marin High School made a huge impact on me. In fact, I didn't realize how ignorant I was. I was one of the parents that think, oh, it can't be that bad. And sadly, I learned, no, it can actually be worse. And having just heard all these statistics, I actually gave to the board earlier today. The CDC had come out with the new statistics on kids getting involved in tobacco use. And it was horrible. So in looking at this, I actually called the MCOE because I remember the presentation, but didn't remember, like, well, where was it? And if you go on there, there's a specific page, they actually had all these different programs that they were offering. And I was trying to find out how we get more programs or information out to families and kids, because I don't think it's just the kids that need information. I think it's the parents. I mean, sadly, my cousin has 4 kids, of which 2 of them, she says it's fine that they're vaping. And I just don't know what to do about that. I'm like, this is crazy. Why do you not know? They don't live here, but I think that there's a huge educational component that's needed. And I see, as I was talking to, I think her name's Kristen at the MCOE that runs the program, I had asked, because the signage and stuff like that on here is anti-smoking, and I get that you just say don't smoke, but to me, vaping being specific, and she did mention there might be some designations on the sign that they're creating to change that. And so are these signs that are on here the ones that she's referencing?
I don't know if we've identified the specific signs yet, but I wanted to go back to the SRO, and that's an SRO outreach, so it's also about education.
Right.
And prevention, too.
Right, and I appreciate that, and this actually goes back to what I said earlier with the kids and mental health. I think it's great that they're there on site, but I think we really have to figure out how do you get to the kids, and that is one, having them there is great, but having peers or having people who've gone through it and just figuring out ways to make connections that I think, at least when I was growing up, it was just so much different. How you. Unfortunately, my kids are not huge on technology because we don't let them, but how to get them disconnected from, or maybe that's how you reach them. I don't know, but just figuring out different tools to reach out to them. So having said that, the literature piece too just seems kind of, I know it's necessary, but I don't know how much of use that is. The smoking and vaping, do you know anything about these detectors?
Yeah, so that's something that a lot of districts are adopting now. There are districts in Sonoma that are utilizing them. We're talking to different districts that have these in place and sort of seeing what they're finding. One of the elements that's kind of interesting about them is they do provide data to you, so you have. Not only do you get a real-time warning when they go off, so you can go address it, but it can also track data and let you know when your peak times are and make sure that you have individuals there. So.
Okay, and so where are these units to be? What is the hope with the 80, the detectors? And I assume the services are for the, giving you the feedback or whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah. So install those in student restrooms at our secondary levels and utilize that as a monitoring tool and an alert tool.
Okay, so you are going down to like the middle school levels for sure. It's not just for the high school.
We'll start at the high school and then see how far funding carries us.
I would like to actually, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah,
But that is, part of the scope of the project. Yep.
It's trying to identify that or,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I mean, I really, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So it's based on the bathrooms. Okay. And then I actually I scheduled a meeting after the break with, is it pronounced Evie or Evie?
Mm-hmm.
Evie. Just so I can get further information. I welcome any other, just if there's stuff coming up, I asked to be on, I said, is there some kind of list to, from the county when they do these programs or when they're running different things to find out about them, because I would really like to push more stuff out to parents and figure out how to make those connections with the kids. And then the last thing I'll say, and I've kind of mentioned this before, I will admit I don't know enough about it, but my understanding from the feedback I'm hearing from parents and from teachers is that our policies at the schools maybe are not adequate in addressing kids vaping. I'm hearing there's a lot of vaping in class, or it's a sneakier thing. It's different than, if you're lighting a cigarette. I mean, I can smell that, for forever. But vaping is just such a different thing, and making sure that we have policy. I know that there was a change recently to add in vaping to some of those, along with the tobacco products, but maybe taking a look and figuring out if there's ways to hone in on what actually gets done to kids if they're caught with that, just to help help the school sites and help parents and stuff like that as well. So that's it, sorry.
Trustee Cooper?
So I just have, thank you for this information. I just have a quick comment. It's about what I was talking about earlier. And it's on the budget detail page. I want to make sure that because really the city agreed to pay for the SROs for this calendar year, or this school year. So I wouldn't, because it's a limited resource, let's make sure that this money I would prefer that this money doesn't go for this school year. So as it's indicated here, $182,000 is going to go to to support the SRO program. Where
Not in the school year. Well,
okay, it
because
says, oh, okay.
right, because a few minutes ago we talked about seeing if we can roll the money over because the
Well, it
city
says
has
fiscal year 18-19, which I think is
exactly,
this
and
year.
everything's been kind of pushed out with when they awarded the.
That's fine, I understand that,
everything
but I
like
just
that.
want to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
we don't succumb to some pressure from somewhere to say, oh yeah, we could use that money, because we definitely could use the money next year in 2 subsequent years.
Right. No, I know that Superintendent Hogaboom and Chief McGill have had this discussion, and we're preparing a letter to go to Chief McGill about what our requirements are for an SRO for next year.
Next year,
Mhm.
good, because that's different than what's on here.
Trustee Gasson? Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
So just a follow-up question, just based on what you just said. So are they not the same, are this officers not the same each year? Do they just get assigned for a year? Sorry. Oh, they don't know?
I don't know the staffing particulars at the city. However, Chief McGill did note that, I mean, they pulled somebody from patrol to be an SRO. So, I mean, in theory, that person would go back, but then in theory, that person would come back.
Okay.
You know?
It just would be nice to have consistency for the
Mhm.
kids.
No, I
And
think
so-
we all agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Gila?
Yeah, one of the feedbacks that I got from parents and students is that, especially from parents, that there's the policies between both high schools. Both high schools are not consistent. And so a lot of times parents feel that they are doing their best that they can to, educate the kids on vaping and e-cigarettes. And that so they're doing their part at home, which is where it should begin. But then what happens is those parents feel like they come to the schools, the students come to the schools, and then they don't get, there's no consequences. And and they were talking about, just different students having different consequences, which I just want to make sure that we go through both policies at some time and just kind of take a look at those two. So that's something on the list of things to do for future. But so with that note, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, so we have a first by Trustee Aguila. Second, Trustee Mack. Okay, so first by Trustee Aguila, second by Trustee Mack. This is to approval of the tobacco prevention grant. All those in favor? 6-0, absent. All right, that concludes our meeting for this evening. Next week is midwinter break, so the school district will be closed all week. And our next board meeting for the board is February 26th. We have a special board meeting beginning at 6 o'clock here at this board table, and then a regular meeting on March 5th with a closed session at 6 and an open session at 7. This meeting is adjourned.